From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon session of the regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Today is Tuesday, July 30th. It's 2 p.m. Board to reconvene. The first item is roll call.
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch.
Here.
Supervisor Perez.
Next item is a report on actions taken in closed session. County Council.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. This morning, after your open session, you met in closed session on items 39 and 40. However, there is no reportable action.
Thank you. The next item is the consent agenda. Excuse me. All items with a C, listed with a C or a CA above the item number, are considered to be routine and non-controversial by county staff. We can act on those all in one motion. This is your opportunity to either make a comment about any of those items or ask for separate consideration of any of those items. Hang on one second. I will, so you raised your hand, you completely threw me off. I will, I'll allow you, you're gonna be allowed to ask for separate consideration. It's up to a member of the board to actually pull one of those items or ask for separate consideration of one of those. Let me tell you what, first of all, is on the consent agenda. It starts on the PM agenda, which, by the way, if you need agendas, they're in the back of the room by the doors. PM agenda starts, the consent agenda starts on page 3, consists of items 7 and 8. I understand that, do you have item 8? Is that the item you, okay. I understand there was going to be a request for item 8. Consent agenda goes on to page 4, consisting of items, all the items 9 through 14. Page 5, items 16 through 21. And on to page 6, items 22 through 30. Is there anyone here, that's the cue, that would like to pull any of those items for separate consideration? Come on up to the microphone and make that, just give us your name and give us your request.
Jennifer Ann Sunderland Fitzsimmons, and I would like to talk about number 8.
Okay, that's in the 2nd District. Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I had some prior notification, excuse me, that this item may want to have some separate consideration, and so I'll go ahead and pull the item, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to hear that item separately in its normally listed sequence. Any other requests or comments on the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board for a motion on the consent calendar with separate consideration for item number 8 and to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and to reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
So moved.
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. That takes us to page 2 of the afternoon agenda. We're now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority. There is one item on that agenda. It's a consent item. Is there anyone here who would like to remove that item or make a comment about that item that's here today? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board and ask for a motion on the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and to adjourn as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvene as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District.
So moved. Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Okay, we're now sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Item 2 is also a consent agenda item for that entity. Is there anyone here that would like to remove that item for separate consideration or make a comment about that particular item? Seeing none, I'll return it to the board and ask for a motion on the consent agenda for the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and to adjourn as such and to reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved. Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Item 3 is a public request. It is a presentation by the Kern County Farm Bureau regarding a donation of cameras to the Sheriff's Rural Crimes Investigation Unit. And I believe we're going to have, hi, Ariana, please come forward. State your name and proceed, please. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, my name is Ariana Hoban, and I am the Executive Director of the Kern County Farm Bureau. I'm here today on behalf of the Kern County Farm Bureau members and directors to extend our appreciation to the Kern County Sheriff's Rural Crime Investigation Unit. We greatly appreciate the time the unit spends at our monthly board meetings to educate our members on real crime occurring in Kern County and its surrounding areas. As a result, the Kern County Farm Bureau believes there is a great public-private partnership through the donation of cameras in order to better assist the detectives with their work. We currently have 4 cameras and are working to receive more and would like to continue to donate the cameras per the board's approval. I would like to thank the Sheriff's Rural Crime Investigation Unit for all their hard work, and thank you, Mr. Chairman and supervisors of the board, for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoban. Let me stay close in case there's a comment. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, there is no action required. Thank you very much for being here today. Takes us to item 4, which is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons to address the board on any matter that's not on the agenda but is under the jurisdiction of the board. Is there anyone here that would like to make a public presentation? Seeing none, I'll go on to item 5, which is board member announcements and reports. Sorry, Supervisor Maggard, thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for not punching in for that. Colleagues, I would like to, with your indulgence, ask our CAO to extend an invitation to Mary Bedard, our county auditor, controller, and registrar, and handles our elections and all the other things that go under her purview. There's been a lot of discussion nationally about the security of our electoral process and whether or not votes are being counted in a way that maintains their integrity and accuracy. And I would like to ask in the near future for Ms. Bedard to come back before us in one of our open sessions and explain to the public and to us what precautions we've taken, and if those concerns are anything that we should share, and if not, what confidence we might be able to have. So could you extend that for me, please? Thank you, Mr. Alsop.
Thank you. Seeing no others, we'll move to item 6, which is under the Planning and Natural Resources Department. This is a request from Suzanne Saltz. The original applicant was Mike Ross by KQ Inc. to appeal the decision of the Planning Commission approving a conditional use permit which allowed for an annual fall festival on 19.41 acres located at 11811 Rosedale Highway. Who's going to start? Mr. Murphy?
I will, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. The project before your board this afternoon is an appeal to the April 25th, 2019 decision of the Planning Commission to approve conditional use permit number 30, map number 10125, which authorizes a 3-year annual fall festival to be located on the south side of Rosedale Highway on an approximately 20-acre parcel owned by North of the River Parks and Recreation District. Again, the applicant for today's appeal is Ms. Suzanne Saltz. She lives in the neighborhood adjacent to the parcel in which the festival activities would occur. And again, the original applicant for the fall festival is Mr. Mike Ross, and he is represented by Chris Mink with QK. As I previously mentioned, the project site's located on the south side of Rosedale Highway on approximately 20 acres owned by North of the River Parks and Rec. The parcel itself is located between Old Farm Road and West Jewetta Avenue and takes direct access off of Rosedale Highway. The property is designated as state residential by the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan and has a zone classification of exclusive agricultural. As shown on this site plan, specific festival activities include a haunted house, a corn maze, and a pumpkin patch. Your board should further be advised that while the entire parcel is approximately 20 acres in size, as can be seen by this site map, project applications would be limited to the northernmost 9 acres, thus eliminating any direct access to the adjacent single-family residences. In addition, the more intense noise-generated activities, such as the haunted house and pumpkin patch, are located on the east side of the property, furthest away of the existing residential uses. The festival itself has been operating annually throughout Metro Bakersfield since 2006. From 2006 to 2008, the festival was held at Fruitvale and Norris Park. Between the years 2009 and 2012, the festival was held at the same parcel that is being proposed this afternoon. From 2013 through 2014, the festival was held at the Kern County Museum. In 2015 through 2017, the festival was held at North of the River property located by Centennial High School in between River Lakes Drive and Meany. And in 2018, last year, the festival was located at the Track House, which is across from Rush Air Sports near Gilmore Avenue and Buck Owens. As approved by the Planning Commission in April, the Fall Festival was authorized for a temporary 3-year period of time that would run from 2019 through 2021. As identified on pages 1 and 2 of your staff report, the festival will only be operating on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays during the month of October. The one exception to this rule is that in 2019 only, the festival will remain open through November 1st and 2nd, which fall on a Friday and Saturday night, respectively. Festival staff would be authorized to be on site beginning at 10 a.m. for daily preparation and setup activities. While setup would begin at 10 a.m., the facility would be open to the public from noon to 10 p.m. on Friday and Sundays, and from noon to midnight on Saturdays. All ticket sales are required to stop 1 hour before the scheduled closing time, and all staff must be off-site 1 hour after the facility closes to the public. Attendance shall not exceed 700 persons at any one time, and that includes volunteer and staff that are on site. Construction activities would commence on August 15th each year, and removal of all items must be done by November 15th. Any use of heavy equipment and/or stadium lighting would be prohibited after 5 p.m. During the course of processing this request, staff notified surrounding property owners within 1,000 feet of this site, along with other county departments. Staff received 7 comment letters. 4 of the comment letters were from public agencies requesting specific conditions be included as part of the project. We received 3 comment letters from adjacent residences who were opposed to the project due to potential concerns regarding increases in crime, dust, noise, and traffic. In response to these concerns, staff reviewed the local crime reported within a half mile of the property during the years 2010 through 2012 when the festival was operating at this location. As a result of this review, staff could not find any crime reports directly related to the festival activities, nor could we find any unusual increases in crime during this time period. To address concerns specifically related to the project, the Planning Commission adopted Condition 4G, which will require the submittal of a security plan. Condition 7G, which will require the project applicant to install a chain link fence along the southern boundary of the project site activities to ensure that festival patrons cannot access the restricted area during any and all project operations. Condition 4F will require the applicant to mail a notice to all property owners abutting the project site that would outline the hours of operation and would provide a contact number to call for after-hour noise-related disturbances. In addition, the Planning Commission adopted Condition 5G. This condition will require the project applicant to provide a deposit to the Planning and Natural Resources Department that would fund planning staff monitoring of the project site throughout the event. Condition 6C would require the parking area be surfaced with the appropriate materials, such as decomposed granite, to reduce dust emissions from vehicles driving onto the project site. As mentioned earlier, the project was considered by the Planning Commission on April 25th, 2019. During public testimony, 2 property owners spoke in opposition to the project. Similar to the comments staff received prior to the hearing, the residents cited concerns related to increased traffic within the surrounding neighborhood, potential increases in criminal activity, concerns over excessive noise, light impacts, and concerns related to increased dust. 3 residents spoke in favor of the project, indicating that the use of the property was better than a vacant lot. The site was previously identified by NOR as a potential site for a public park. These residents are hopeful that this temporary use of the site will continue until such time as NOR has the appropriate resources to construct a park on site. I would note for your board that implementation of a park would require a public hearing and the processing of a conditional use permit within the planning department. As a reminder to your board, today's hearing is considered de novo, meaning that consideration of the project is not limited to those items discussed by the Planning Commission. The options before your board include denial of the appeal and adoption of findings approving the conditional use permit that would allow the annual Fall Festival to operate at this location. Or your board can approve the appeal and adopt findings disapproving the conditional use permit. Mrs. Saltz, she is the applicant for the appeal, has provided for the record a PowerPoint which compares the project to the previous festival on site. It contains video clips from the board meeting in 2012, and while the appellant is entitled to present any material to your board, this is a different event from a different applicant, and the size and scope is different. Thus, the video clips could be taken out of context. Staff has not used prior board comments to this different project to formulate our recommendation. And again, for purposes of comparison with the previously approved festival at the site, in terms of our recommendation, I would just like to note a few of the differences. The proposed project activities are less intense than what was previously conducted. Previous festival activities catered to an older demographic and included both a fall and winter festival that operated daily, as opposed to the current request for a fall festival only that would operate on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. In general, it's approximately 85 days versus 15, which is what are proposed with this proposed request. The previously approved festival included use of the entire 20-acre parcel, whereas the current proposal before your board would limit activities to the northernmost 9 acres of the site away from all the existing single-family residences. At the April 25th hearing, it was the determination of the Planning Commission that implementation of the project would not generate any significant long-term traffic-related impacts to surrounding residential properties. The proposed parking area will be appropriately surfaced to reduce dust-related impacts, and patrons will access the site directly off Rosedale Highway. While currently undeveloped, establishment of a consistent use for the site will help to ensure that this underutilized vacant parcel remains actively maintained throughout the calendar year. The site has been designed and conditioned to minimize impacts to adjacent residential properties by focusing the more intense uses on the east side of the lot. Additionally, the entire 10-acre block will be fenced off, preventing any unauthorized access and direct access to the adjacent single-family residences. In preparation for today's hearing and in reviewing the final conditions of approval, staff realized that Condition 1B and Condition 1C are redundant, as all of the proposed operational hours are clearly identified in Condition 1F. Therefore, staff would be recommending that Condition 1B and 1C be deleted, as, again, Condition 1F does a better job of outlining the proposed hours of operation. The recommendation at this time is to approve the temporary conditional use permit for a period of 3 years, with all operations to cease November 2021 in accordance with recommended revised conditions with the deletions of Conditions 1B and 1C, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution. That completes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any other staff comments before we go to the public? Okay. This is a public hearing, correct? So I'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here that would like to make any comments. Oh. Sorry, the applicant, is the applicant here? Do you have some information you'd like to prepare? We're going to let you go first before we hear from the rest of the public. Okay.
I do have a presentation.
Okay. Come forward, and we just ask that you would state your name for the record and proceed.
No problem.
Thank you.
Get situated. Distinguished members of the board and community, my name is Suzanne Saltz, and I reside on Autumn Rose Court near Rosedale Park. Do you need me to spell my name, or are you good?
We're good. Thank you.
Like many in my neighborhood, I am excited that Kern County is hosting more community-minded events like Lightning in the Bottle. The best part of a community event is having neighborhood and community interests in mind. Lightning in a Bottle was a success, and part of that success was choosing an appropriate site. I want to make it clear that I am not, we are not, against the idea of a fall festival with a haunted house, corn maze, and pumpkin patch. We just feel that Rosedale Park is not the appropriate location for the festival, and there has been precedent in the past which supports our view. Quickly giving some history, Scare Valley is not the first fall festival with a haunted house, corn maze, and pumpkin patch to request a conditional use permit at Rosedale Park. Between 2010 and 2012, another fall festival called Talladega Frights with the same attractions was held at Rosedale Park. In 2012, the applicant, Mike Ross, which is not different from the one in the past because of his connection here, partnered with Mike Wilbur to bring Talladega Frights to Rosedale Park, and that was in 2012. I want to show you a layout of what was at Rosedale Park in 2012 and what is being proposed now, which is the subject of this hearing. Here are the layouts side by side. At first glance, the biggest difference is the placement and size of the corn maze. Mike Ross's Scare Valley is not using the back part of the park, and the corn maze is almost 1/6 the size it was in 2012. Actually, the most concerning difference is the size of the parking lot. Talladega Frights had parking for 494 vehicles. Scare Valley's parking is less than half the size at 210. And this includes volunteers and staff. In the current staff report, approval was given for a maximum of 700 people at the festival at one time. Where's everyone going to park? At the August 14th, 2012 Board of Supervisors 2 p.m. hearing, Ms. Oviatt expressed her and her staff's concerns about overflow parking. And this is when the festival had spaces for 494 vehicles. Their concerns were realized as overflow cars did park on Rosedale Highway and the following streets: Old Farm Road, Jewetta Avenue, Ruby Street, which is actually a private dirt road, Linda Lee Lane, Newt Street, Mamie Avenue, Handel Avenue, and Christie Avenue. Now you're probably thinking, why would people park so far away? Isn't that a long walk to Rosedale Park? Well, not everyone walked around to the main entrance for the Fall Festival. There are 3 cul-de-sacs that lead into Rosedale Park. They're off of Handel Avenue, Christie Avenue, and Newt Street. In 2012, temporary chain link fences with green screen netting were put up around the Fall Festival, which is probably very similar with what they're going to be doing this time. These fences were not soundproofing. As everyone knows, chain link and netting do not mitigate sound. They were set up to prevent people from entering and exiting the Fall Festival from the back and sides. Taking a look at Newt Street, which is the opening on the farthest end of Rosedale Park, these are the photos of Newt Street at Rosedale Park in 2012 and in June of this year. The photo in 2012 shows the temporary fencing with green netting. The fencing has come down on the left and is sagging on the right from people stepping on it. Currently, there is a 4-foot wire fence across the opening, and the right side has been taken down, as you can see in the close-up. Another thing this picture shows is how flat and barren Rosedale Park is. It has never been improved. There are no trees, there are no berms with grass on it, and it's so flat to the point that you can see the AT&T switching building, which is at the corner of Jewetta and Rosedale Highway. It's the rectangular white building on the right-hand side, and houses across Rosedale Highway on the left. The same is the situation with Handel and Christie Avenues, which enter the park from the west. A temporary fence with green screen netting was also set up to block these entrances, and again, the fencing was compromised. Please note in these photos, the wood fencing at the entrances goes down to 4 feet, and that's because of the CC&R requirements. They can't put a taller fence. From both of these cul-de-sacs, it is again notable how flat and open it is from both Christie and Handel Streets across to Jewetta Avenue and Rosedale Highway. You can clearly see the AT&T switching station and the church, which is across Jewetta. This is very important to note for noise. The issue of compromised fencing was discussed at the August 14th, 2012 2 p.m. board meeting hearing by then resident Barry Roby. He also addressed the issue of generator noise from powering Talladega Frights. You can play the video, thank you.
It's noted in here that are about running diesel generators, which they need for their lights and things of that nature. 60 dB is the highest it can be at the edge, and I can tell you that talking to you right now, because I work for a company that we pay close attention to dB levels and measure it all the time, 65 dB is lower than my talking to you right now. And I can tell you that does not happen. When those lights are going, things are blazing, generators are running, it carries much further than that, okay? Because it is just a flat field right over to our places. There's nothing going to block it.
Now, Barry Roby's house is the last house at the end of Handel Street right up against the cul-de-sac. I have it circled in blue. And on the right-hand side is the view towards Rosedale Park from his front lawn. He was perfectly situated to hear all the noise, whether from the haunted house or from the generators powering the festival. In all of the photos you have seen of Rosedale Park, the homes appear to be far away. But in reality, that is not the case. Photos deceive the reality. And as everyone understands, when you see something and then you take a picture, let's say you see the mountains, it's a beautiful clear day and you can see the mountains, and you say, wow, I want to take that photo. And with your eye, you see a beautiful picture. You pick up your iPhone, you take the photo, and you can't seem to get close enough to get what your eye sees. And that is the case with this park with these photos. Keep in mind that what you're seeing here is on a wide-angle lens done on an iPhone, and I know a little bit about lenses because of the work I do in the film industry. So what appears to be stuff that is close will appear to be correct. Stuff that's far away, the farther you go, the smaller it will appear, even though to your mind, when you're there and you see it visually, it is not that way. Now, on the note of sound, Dr. Daniel A. Russell, a professor at Penn State University for their graduate program in acoustics, explained it as so. Sound travels faster in warmer temperatures. During the day, the ground is warmer than the air above, so the sound near the ground is traveling faster. Conversely, at night, the ground is cooler than the air above, so the sound above is traveling slower and therefore travels farther at night than during the day. Dr. Russell has a PhD in acoustics from Penn State and a master's in applied physics from Northern Illinois University. He is also a member of the Acoustical Society of America and the Institute for Noise Control Engineering. And if anyone needs a citation, I have it and can provide it. Former resident Barry Roby also spoke to the Board of Supervisors at that same very hearing about Rosedale Park being considered in 2008 as one of the least desirable locations for proposed water park due to traffic issues. Thank you.
One of the exercises that we went through in the past was reviewing the water park. During that time, we were working directly with the NOR board. At that time, we were talking about traffic issues and things. At that time, they asked that the water company actually review the 5 sites that we recommended that they take a look at other than just ours, and then make a decision. They came back to that board meeting for NOR and said that indeed this site, especially for traffic reasons, was the least desirable of all of the sites that they had, and they chose one up off of Coffee Road up near the high school at the time. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you, Mr. Roby.
Now, I know that background was given a little earlier. I'm just going to reiterate it. On May 13th, 2010, Mike Wilbur secured a conditional use permit to hold a fall festival, including a haunted house, corn maze, and pumpkin patch at Rosedale Park from September 29th to October 31st. This was a 5-year conditional use permit, and it was set to expire May 13th, 2015. On July 12th, 2012, Mike Wilbur and Mike Ross received approval to modify their conditional use permit to expand the fall festival through November 7th and to include a holiday festival that would run from Thanksgiving Day to New Year's Day. On August 14th, 2012, the Planning Department appealed the modification to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors subsequently approved the appeal, which is why there was no winter festival held there, and modified the hours of operation, changing the original conditional use permit to expire May 13th, 2013. They shortened the permit by 2 years. On September 25th, 2012, Mike Wilbur and Mike Ross requested a modification of the operating hours. The Board of Supervisors approved this modification because, as Supervisor Watson, who was our district supervisor at the time, Supervisor Maggard and Supervisor Scrivener noted, this was to be the last year that the Fall Festival would be at Rosedale Park. After hearing both sides at the August 14th, 2012, 2 p.m. Board of Supervisors hearing, the supervisors made the following comments before approving the Planning Department's appeal. Thank you.
I respect the entrepreneurial effort of those that are involved in trying to make this project work, but as has been stated eloquently by my colleague, it's an incongruent use of this property next door to this neighborhood. It just doesn't fit.
And that was Supervisor Maggard. This is Supervisor Scrivener, at the time chairman.
I'd just like to say I greatly admire the entrepreneurial spirit of Mr. Wilbur and Mr. Ross. I mean, I hope you are able to find a location that's a better fit. I just simply think that this project's gotten too large. It doesn't fit in with the existing neighborhood zoning in the area, but I do wish you gentlemen well.
And then this was our district supervisor, Watson.
I think what you want to do is nice. It looks like it's family activities and so forth. The concern I have is that it has grown from a little neighborhood operation, which would be acceptable in a community like that, to something much larger. I think your vision is larger. I think what you applied for is much larger. I think the structures that are out there reflect, again, as I said, a project creep, and I think it's beyond what should be in that neighborhood. I think you should find another place to do it that's more appropriate to do that.
And I just want to say that the board could have said, we are not going to allow you to do the Winter Festival, but you can continue with your conditional use permit and do the haunted house, corn maze, and pumpkin patch. But instead, they said, this is it, this is the last year, and it's not happening after 2012 at this location. Now, a little something about Mike Ross. He became involved with Talladega Frights in 2012 and is now bringing a new incarnation of Talladega Frights called Scare Valley. In October 2017, Mike Ross spoke at the World Water Park Association Symposium, and in his speaker biography, which is on the left highlighted, he said that Talladega Frights, quote, has had a steady stream of over 35,000 people attend every year. He went on to state that Talladega Frights, quote, averages more than 2,000 people per day and is expanding to reach an even larger population. It is hard to believe that Mike Ross doesn't have the same ambitions for Scare Valley. Now, once again, I'm not saying Mr. Ross's ideas, plans, or goals are bad, because they're not. They're just not appropriate for our neighborhood. We are not equipped to handle his ideas and ambitions at Rosedale Park, and the board realized that in 2012. When Chairman Scrivener, Supervisor Scrivener, made these following comments, he did so to explain why he was supporting a motion to change the hours for the final Talladega Frights at the event at Rosedale Park.
This is just for this year. This is the last year that this activity is going to be taking place.
Now, in 2012, 78 residents in the neighborhood around Rosedale Park signed a petition requesting that the Fall Festival be moved to an alternate location. Chairman Supervisor Couch, I would like to present to you a petition with signatures from the residents around Rosedale Park. As I drop my pen, I have the original as well as copies for each of the supervisors.
Pass them on.
This year, we were able to get 158 signatures after surveying 148 homes around Rosedale Park. All of the signatures that you see are from neighbors and residents that live within a street of Rosedale Park. Of those surveyed, 103 households were against a fall festival returning to Rosedale Park. 20 had either no opinion or supported the festival being held at Rosedale Park, and 23 homes just didn't answer their door. This means 83.7% of responding homes opposed the return of the Fall Festival to Rosedale Park. Some of those residents are here today, and they will be speaking. But because of the midday scheduling of this hearing, a majority of my neighbors could not be here for a number of reasons, including work and daycare issues. There was then, and there is now, significant opposition to this event being held at Rosedale Park. All right, so here again is Rosedale Park as seen from Rosedale Highway. Knowing how sound travels farther at night and how photos don't tell the whole story, it is much easier to understand how all of these residents are affected by the noise generated from the attractions at the Fall Festival. As you can see, the residents of the last apartment building and some of the homes have direct line of sight through their windows. Also, all the fencing bordering the park are made of wood fence boards, not sufficient at all as a sound barrier. Because this park has never been improved or developed, it does not have a block wall. There are alternate locations that are much more suitable for the Fall Festival. So this is River Lakes Ranch Park. I have the park in blue and I have residential in green. Talladega Frights was held here from 2015 to 2017. The park is bordered on the east side with commercial properties, south and southwest side by the canal. Northwest side is the River Lakes Recreation Building and Centennial High School. And the north side is apartments with a buffer zone of being across the street and having a short retaining wall, swimming pool, rec center building, and trees and bushes to mitigate sound. Just to show you the difference in look at these two parks, you have Rosedale Park on the top, and you have River Lakes Ranch Park on the bottom. You'll see that River Lakes Ranch Park has a permanent fencing that has slats in it. And if you look through the slats, the reason why you only see roofs is because of the canal berm, which is double wide. It's a double, there's two canals there. Another alternate location is Pioneer Village. Talladega Frights used this location from 2013 to 2014. It is completely surrounded by commercial and industrial zoning and is centrally located in Bakersfield. Although there has been positive, and I apologize, although this is a positive community event, it has been proven to be inappropriate for our neighborhood. There are many reasons why this fall festival should not be at Rosedale Park, and they include insufficient parking for attendees, causing overflow on side streets, proximity to residential dwellings, hours of operation are incompatible with a residential zoning, noise from the generators, the haunted house, and attendees, excessive light pollution from lighting, which is very bright, impacting adjacent residential dwellings, traffic congestion on Rosedale Highway, Old Farm Road, and West Jewetta Avenue, and the noise also negatively impacts domestic and farm animals in the neighborhood. Many homes are slated to be able to have farm animals, including horses. Now, something was brought to my attention, which I'm going to make really quick before the end of this. Someone said to me, if you don't allow this event to be held at Rosedale Park, it could be sold and you could have low-income housing there instead. Use that, and you're not the only one. Somebody else said that. It's not as easy as selling the property because the property has been designated by NOR and the city as parkland. It could only be sold or broken up in certain fashions. And one of that is that NOR is trying to mandate 2.5 to 3 acres per 1,000 people. They want to make sure that there's green space for everybody. And when it comes to a park in the municipal code 15.80.170, talking about sale of dedicated land, the only way the land could be sold is if like land attached to the neighborhood or subdivision is found and either traded or they sell this and they purchase the other land. Something similar was done with this before. Independence Elementary, which is in our neighborhood, was originally slated to be at Rosedale Park, and they decided the property was too small. Rosedale Park was going to be where Independence Elementary is, and it's a much larger piece of property. And the school district and NOR did a swap of land. And that's how Rosedale Park came to be where it is. So there aren't a lot of options. There's nothing saying that the north of the river might just take part of the park, but there's no way that they'd be able to sell the entire piece of land and make it into low-income housing. Any questions?
You might want to stay close to the front row. You may get some.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I appreciate it. Oh, thank you.
Now we'll open it up to any others that are here that would like to make a comment. Anyone here that, if you'd like, let me ask you a favor. If you'd like to speak about this item, could I get you to come to the front row so we can get you to the microphone quickly? Thank you. Just come to the microphone, state your name and proceed.
My name's Thomas R. Perry. Thank you, one and all, for allowing me to speak before you today. I'm here not in opposition to what this company wants to do.
Hang on 1 second. I got 2 people talking, actually 3 people talking to me. What's the? Thomas R. Perry. Oh, that's all. They just want to know your name again. Sorry. Lorelei, Ms. Oviatt, do you have a comment?
I apologize. He has an overhead exhibit, and I just wanted to make sure we turned on the document cam for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Now go ahead.
Okay. Want to thank Suzanne for her commentary on this. It's rather enlightening. It opened up a lot of possibilities, a lot of things I wasn't aware of. You can see this is a map drawn right out here that encases Ruby Street down through here, and it's still not clear whether this has public dominion or if it's private. I own what you see, the 1.27 acres, parcel number 9 right there. And in the past, because the ambient traffic goes through when you're going, that's correct, when you are going west on Rosedale Highway, there is no place to turn in. So consequently, the traffic turns in, which is on West Uetta. They filter down and go to this street trying to circumvent the roads and get a crosscut. We have had them park in front of our house. We've had them park on my property. I've had vandalism on the property. It is posted. That has still not stopped it. My concerns are the dust that kicks up from here and from the original site. Back when Talladega was started, I do remember that the noise abatement, the dust and the control of trash was not met. We called, as staff had indicated, they said there's no theft problem. Well, I got to disagree. I called the appropriate authorities. Unfortunately, they're understaffed, underpaid, and they couldn't always possibly come out and take your report. My tires were slashed. I had gas stole. Each and every time that there's been something on this piece of property, and it didn't matter whether it was a water park or any community event like this, theft and crime goes up in our area. I own 2 pieces of property in here. One is within 1,000 feet of where this is going to be. That particular property is probably within 500 feet. And my question is, how are you going to police this with not having the appropriate authorities out here to stop people from parking on my lot, telling me to take a hike? They can be there. They openly admit that they are coming from the event. So once they're on my property, the police department tells me now, since it would become aggravated trespassing since it's posted. So I have a concern for traffic in this area. I have a concern for the safety in this area. They drive up and down the streets exceeding the speed limit. We have signs out that say drive like your kids live here. When it's posted at 25 and you see somebody doing 32 to 45, or they make burnouts. It's difficult to live at a residence in here and try to police the area. We do it best because we have to be very vigilant during this time to watch for transients coming through here, watch for traffic that's going to either block your driveway, which has happened numerous times, possibly even be detrimental to you or deface your property. It's an ongoing situation. I don't think the board has been totally ever really has been brought to your attention. And it's time that after me, from talking to the individuals up and down the street, they would all love to be here, but as Suzanne stated, it's in the middle of the afternoon. They can't take off of work to do this. So I know that I represent a large quantity of these people up and down Lindley Lane for number one. The 10 property owners that you see right there from down Ruby Lane, I started a petition with them, and then we got to thinking, well, maybe they, if it's not privately owned, since we own, it's a deeded easement, and I'm not clear what that entails. But they do block it. It becomes a hazard, and these people obviously can take it to a different place that would be better suited, be more structured, could handle the parking, could handle the extra traffic that we're getting, and certainly it would relieve part of the crime that does show up each and every time. And I know if this was in your backyard, you gentlemen would be in the place with the same situation that we are. You would express your concerns. And I can only hope that you take into consideration me with my health issue. I have valley fever, my wife has asthma. With the undue expected traffic in here, it escalates, so my medical needs go up. I've never been reimbursed for it, never asked for anything like that. But I do and will be concerned, will protect my property to the best I can, and I'm concerned about my safety. I've had bottles thrown at me in the past, and it escalates because this is going to be here. I'd like to say that my final statement is I'd like you to consider not to grant this permit that they have for my foreclosed reasons, and there are better places in the community that I feel that they would be better served. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who'll be next?
Hi, my name is Mary Jane Carrillo. I live at 2119 Newt Street. I live in a cul-de-sac where it's only me and my neighbor's backyard is there, and so there has been more crime since this. We had people trying to jump fences. They were throwing, my house is right up to the maze. It's not my backyard, it's my house. And I did talk to Mr. Ross about my concerns. His young security would drive at night, revving their engines, their music. I had to go over there a couple times in the pouring rain to tell them to stop. Nobody really cared. You know, I'm so happy for Suzanne and following through with all this, because I don't have all that, and I couldn't make it to the meeting in April because we were working on a house out of town. We do. For the last, I'd say like 7 years, we have an empty cul-de-sac. 2 times a year, people would drop a car off, the nicer car. Then we'd call the sheriff. They said nothing was reported. Then they'd come and bring another car and come back and pick this car up. And these people are from Oildale, the east side, all that, because I believe in probably the year before, and we had a lot of traffic, and we stopped a burglary down the street, my son and my husband, before he became a deputy. They got a little bit of stuff, but they didn't get it all. And my neighbor down the street, 2 doors down, he got burglarized like 2 or 3 different times after this. One time during it, and then after. It's just, and you know, the people would harass my dogs. I know the maze isn't quite up to our wall now, but you know what? They're right. People jump fences. People parked in our cul-de-sac where nobody should be parking. I'm at the end. I wish they had a picture on Newt Street, and our house is the only one at the end. It's the field, and it's all open. And what we have is a curve. If a cop or somebody was trying to look for their vehicle, they wouldn't see it because how it curves in. Wait, baby. You can't see from, like if you're coming down Linda Lee. See, that's my house. And if you follow all the way around, it's just curved to Kathy Prestige's, she's here going to speak too, to their backyard. And people abused it. I mean, like, it happened like 5 or 6 times. And you know, my son's a deputy. I know they can't come out all the time because you guys don't have the staffing for it. It's hard, you know. My son's window was busted in 2012. And, you know, a lot of neighbors were busted out. They would start, you know, looking through cars and stuff. We didn't really have a whole lot of problems. A bicycle got stolen out of our garage when we left it open one time. We sleep with our windows open in the back of our house. I can hear some traffic from Rosedale Highway, so I know I'm going to be able to hear that. And I have a new baby coming in October, a new granddaughter, and she's going to be staying at my house. I had this one, and you know what? It's not right to bring that noise into my house and that dirt and all these people from these other areas. Somebody said, oh, I didn't know you lived in this neighborhood, because they went to Talladega Frights. It was my nieces who, she doesn't hang around with the right type of people. You know, it's not somebody I want to be associated with. So that's what kind of people were coming into our neighborhood, people that shouldn't have been there. And so they scope the area out, and they didn't know that was a nice neighborhood back there. They scope it out and come and steal from it after. So that is my problem, the noise at night from security people cranking their music, revving their engines, and just the plain noise. There's people throw parties on Handel and Christie. Like she said, it's a vacant field. I can hear it. And this is going to go on till, before I think it was only till 10 o'clock. And, you know, but now it's 11 and 12. And, you know, he had special events that lasted till 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning before. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Name's Claude Heen, H-E-H-N. I live on 11507 Linda Lee Lane. Gentleman talked earlier about no vandalism. I've been vandalized 3 times this year already. Battery cables cut and that. Got them on video. Did I call the cops? No, I'm not going to call the cops. They got better things to do to come, so I guess, you know, it didn't get counted. And that. Every time there's an event on Rosedale Highway, which is just lately fireworks in that same field, you hear all that noise, you hear all the lights, and that's just, I mean, that's just small. Every year there's Christmas tree farm there. We hear all that stuff, and that's really small. You guys are talking 700. There's no way no parking is for 700 without parking on our streets. The second thing is the fencing that's been showed up there. I walk that all the time with my dogs. There is no fencing. It's a post here and a post there that was put up 10 years ago that's been knocked down. Nobody's done nothing with it. So there is no fencing. That little bit of stuff what you're seeing there is 10 years old and shouldn't even be there. It's more of a hazard than anything. And like it says, you know, like it says, it's just the stuff that comes in on that is just not going to be good for our neighborhood. So I would appreciate it if you turn it down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Supervisors. Chris Mink with QK, representing the applicant, Mr. Mike Ross. I want to thank staff for a thorough presentation. I think they covered the issue very well. We are in concurrence with the staff report and the conditions, and we are in concurrence with the approval of the Planning Commission on April 25th. We believe that the items raised in the appeal were addressed in the CUP conditions that were presented to you today. Overall, there are 54 conditions placed on this project. To put that in context, the oil and gas EIR was the largest EIR ever done in Kern County in California, had 88 mitigation measures. So that means that this annual 15-day event has 2/3 the number of requirements as the oil industry. We would like to reiterate, as previously stated by staff, that the current site is much smaller than the original site that took place in this location. And I gave Ms. Kraus an aerial, if I can get that placed on the. As you can see on this aerial, the site in red there is the part that is not part of the project. That was actually part of the project in 2012. This site is much smaller. The lines, the red line and the black line right there in the middle of the property, that's going to be fenced completely and screened. And so you will not have access from the neighborhood into the facility itself. The only access will be from the parking lot, which is along Rosedale Highway.
Mr. Mick, can you repeat that?
Sorry, the fence, there'll be a fence placed along the red and black line that, see where it says haunted house? There's a line right there. That's, the black part is the project site. The red part is the not a part, which is not part of the, it's part of the.
The red line that is furthest to the top of the picture.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. Yep. So you'll have a fence there that completely separates the southern half of the property from the northern half of the property, and there will be no access on that area. So anybody trying to traverse the site from the south or the west will be turned away. They cannot get to the site because there'll be a fence there blocking them. On the south, that's currently being farmed. It will continue to be farmed. It's owned, the whole parcel's owned by NOR, but they lease the southern half to a farmer. I also passed out my comparison sheet to Ms. Kraus as well. Ms. Thorley, Ms. Ovey, I could put that up on the screen there. This is a comparison between the two projects. So in 2012, 2009 through 2012, the project was actually owned and operated by Mr. Wilbur, Mike Wilbur. Mr. Ross, who is the current applicant, went into partnership with Mr. Wilbur when he was having issues with his facility to help him out. And since that time, Mr. Ross has taken over and ran other events very successfully in Kern County. The biggest difference between Talladega Frights and Halloweenville at Scare Valley is that the primary source of income for this is a primary source of income for Mr. Wilbur. This is not a primary source of income for Mr. Ross. Mr. Ross is a businessman in town, and he does this as a community benefit. He actually likes having these events. He's done multiple events, multiple Christmas events and Halloween events in different locations and done them very successfully. Another difference between the two facilities is back in 2012, we had an event that was 5 days a week. It was 26 days in total. This event will be on weekends only and will be 13 to 15 days per year. The attendance is also going to be drastically different. In 2012, the attendance was about 18,000 people. In 2017, at the River Lakes facility, it was about 13,000 people. And we're estimating, based on last year's number, that the attendance will be about 7,500. There's also a condition that requires a maximum of 700 daily attendance, or people attending the event at any given time. Sorry. In response to Mrs. Salt's graphic that she put up showing a quote from Mr. Ross at a water park convention, the number that Mr. Ross was referring to was Talladega Frights as a company. And Talladega Frights had multiple locations. They had locations in Bakersfield, they had locations in Las Vegas. And so that 35,000 number was the number from all of the locations he was trying to show how much a business could generate. The advertising budget is much smaller on this. Mr. Ross has kind of fine-tuned over the years the events that he likes to put on, what he thinks is successful. And so having a bunch of different types of attractions there is not necessarily profitable and not necessarily something that he wants to put on. And so the advertising budget has really been scaled back to gear it towards only those attendees, families that want to participate in the events that he's having there, the attractions that he's having. The size, again, we're talking 8.8 acres instead of 20 acres in size. Equipment in the 2012 facility, it was 6 generators and 1 air compressor. This proposal has no air compressor and 1 generator, and that generator would be located near Rosedale Highway, about 100 feet from Rosedale Highway on the far north of the property, more than 1,000 feet from residents to the south and probably about 600 to 700 feet from the residents on the west side. Parking lot was dirt back in 2012. There's a condition for 3 inches of decomposed granite that will greatly reduce the amount of air emissions and dust that's being kicked up. There was no buffer fencing in the previous project. There was perimeter fencing, but there was no fencing blocking the corn maze and other activities that were right on the property line to the south, versus, as I showed before, we're going to have a fence in the middle of the property that's buffering the residents from the facility itself. And then finally, the attractions. There was a haunted house, a corn maze, a hayride, pumpkin patch, a zombie hunt experience, and then there was the winter festival as well. And in this proposal, Mr. Ross is only asking for a corn maze, haunted house, and pumpkin patch. So the zombie hunt experience and hayride happened around the perimeter of the site, so you would have people in closer proximity to the residences. In this case, the event is going to be taking place on the full northern part of the property. As I said, Mr. Ross has put on many holiday events in town. He's adept at creating safe environments for our families. These are places for our teens to go and hang out. There's no alcohol sold on these premises, and so we feel that these are great events for our local community. Mr. Ross employs local high school students, college students that have an opportunity to practice their customer service skills, practice their acting skills. And then, overall, I really think that this is a great event, and that these are events that, we need more of in Bakersfield and Kern County. I'd like to say that the move it to River Lakes comment hit home a little bit, because when in 2016 my wife and I were selling our house and we were purchasing another house, and so we thought we'd have a couple months between the purchases to be able to do our renovations, and we ended up selling our house quickly and decided we were going to rent. So we actually rented a place, a little apartment right there across from the River Lakes facility. And we were there for a month, and that month coincided with the event that Mr. Ross did. And so we were there for a month, and we actually enjoyed it. We thought, oh man, there's going to be lights, there's going to be noise, all this parking, noise, dust, traffic, all this stuff. And actually, it was quite pleasant. We enjoyed coming home at night, seeing the lights, hearing the music, listening to the kids laugh. It wasn't anything that was out of the ordinary or something that would drive you nuts. I mean, by the time you got inside and turned on your TV, you couldn't hear it anymore. But you did notice it a little bit. But it was a festive activity, and so just an interesting little tidbit there. I think it's unfair to compare this to Lightning in a Bottle. Lightning in a Bottle was a regional event that took place, and obviously that was a good location out at Buena Vista, far away from homes. You're talking about a multi-day event where people are out there in their trailers camping, drinking, doing other things, listening to music. This is a family event. This is an event where people bring their kids and go and hang out. One of the comments that was made was a video showing Mr. Robbie discussing traffic from a proposed water park. Obviously, a water park is much different of a use than this event. This is a temporary event. That water park would have been a permanent use on the site. Water parks are open typically during the day, during peak hours. So comparing traffic and saying that Rosedale Highway and this location isn't a good place for this, a temporary event, comparing that to discussions about a water park, I think are not comparing apples and apples. I think at this time I'd like to introduce Mr. Ross as the applicant. He had a few words to say, if you would indulge him. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mike Ross. Thank you for holding this hearing for us, and it's an excellent opportunity for me to meet some of the neighbors and hear their concerns. I certainly don't want to be a bull in a china shop. I don't think upsetting the neighbors is going to be a good business move for me, so I'm certainly excited to hear their concerns. But I think everybody is kind of, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse here. The difference between me and Mr. Wilbur, I did Christmas at the time when he was doing Halloween. I other than preparing the tax return, I was not involved at Talladega Fright, so I had a difference of opinion and where I saw it going. And when Mr. Wilbur left town in 2017, I opened up my version of where I thought it would be, and we were successful, in my opinion. We did 7,500 people, 13 days. It was very small. It was very well received. So that's kind of the vision that I have here going forward. I live in the Northwest, so I'm kind of a community member here too. That's why I like the site. It's close to my house. I don't have a pumpkin patch in the Northwest. I have 6 kids, so they're going to be attending this kind of event. So this is something that me and my family will be at too. So I don't know if you guys have any questions for me, but be certainly willing to meet with the neighbors. I'm pretty open book. If they have any concerns, they can certainly address me. I like to feel that I'm pretty open, and I can easily point a light or point a speaker in a different direction and help work through the concerns of the neighborhood. So, thank you.
Stay in the front row. You may get some questions.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Hill. I'm the lead designer and probably the lead operator here at Scare Valley last year. When I spoke in front of the Planning Commission this last time, I spoke about how much this project meant to me. But this time I want to talk about how this event will satisfy the many needs already voiced by the NOR community, and that this project will have no more impact than the proposed park for this land. According to NOR's Park and Recreation Master Plan 2010 through 2020, a need analysis was conducted where people in the NOR community were asked to rank 52 different activities. And according to the chart published on page 42 and 43, the #1 response was team programs, and the second was neighborhood events, i.e. concerts, holiday events, etc. On page 47, I quote, "Teen activities are in short supply in the area." Not only does this project satisfy these 2 highest needs in the community of north of the river, but it also utilizes an abandoned piece of property at no cost to the organization. Next is the impact. The not in favor mentioned lighting, traffic, and vandalism as potential issues. But according to NOR standards on page 12, a lot of 20 acres is considered a community park. They are highly programmed and include recreational pursuits that require travel for most to participate in lighted field sports activities, aquatic facilities, and community centers. According to the description in the NOR website, Rosedale Park is planned to have both basketball multi-use courts with lighting and multi-field softball complex. On numerous articles posted in Bakersfield.com in 2006 and 2007, NOR proposed a water park for this site. Resident Don West said, "It'd be too noisy and too much traffic. I'd rather than put more homes." Subsequently, that 2007 article also mentioned the play structure on Airport Drive that was completely burned down and costing $20,000 to replace. And vandalism at the Mondavi Park, a 9.3 acre park that's 3.1 miles away from this location, in July, costing the district $50,000 and having been vandalized twice this year. This is not to devaluate NOR parks, but I'm honestly starting to believe that the not in favor want nothing less to keep this a lot of overgrown wasteland. Scare Valley will have the equivalent parking to a neighboring park, double its size, the Polo Community Park, which is 40 acres, which is 2.8 miles away. Lighting will be mostly used in the parking lot, pumpkin patch, and areas for safety, but for the most part, Halloween events work best in the dark. We have hired trained security guards and event staff to maintain the safety and the security of our guests and our guests' assets in the surrounding areas. I also want to touch on the PowerPoint that happened before, talking about the 200 or about approximate 300 spaces that we have allotted in our current site plan, talking about that's not enough to hit our cap of 700 participants. And I just want to say, people don't come to these events by themselves. Sometimes I even have friends that want to come, but they can't find anybody to go with them. It's not really a single rider kind of experience. Also, with ride sharing and our demographic being extremely young, we have a lot of drop-offs and pickups. Again, I appreciate you guys for your time.
Thank you. Could you give us your last name again?
My last name is Hill.
Oh, thank you. H-I-L-L.
H-I-L-L, yes.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Tiari Ferguson, and I live at 11507 Linda Lee Lane. I've lived there since 2003, and when this project first came into effect in 2012, The vandalism that happened then and the trash and that was left on all our streets was just, it was unbelievable. I was really surprised. The noise, you can hear the noise. I'm on the south side of Linda Lee and I'm on the west side of Jewetta. And if I can hear the noise from Liberty High School, you know I'm going to hear the noise from this park, which is right one street over into that open field. I'm going to tell you, just, you know, the whole thing, it needs to not happen there. It's not a good place. As they've discussed on Ruby Lane, that lane gets packed with cars. You couldn't even drive another car down there when they're parked on both sides of that street. And I will tell you, in the last 3 years, not picking on the church, but Grace Baptist Church has also held a Halloween festival open to the community. And in the last 3 years, the amount of transients that have come into our neighborhood has been unbelievable. My son used to be a Kern County deputy sheriff years ago, and even years ago, as in 10 years ago, there was not enough deputy sheriffs on duty or available for us to call when we were vandalized. And the vandalism that they said happened wasn't big enough. The robber wasn't in the house or whatever. So they couldn't come, they couldn't take the report. That's why it's not on record. I'm really asking you gentlemen to please reconsider and not have this be approved for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'll be next?
Apologize for the note. I get nervous when I'm speaking. Good afternoon. My name is Jerry Hill, and I'm a homeowner and live near the property site on Rosedale Highway that will one day become Rosedale Park, probably when the funding and timing is right. I have lived in Rosedale since 1993 and Bakersfield most of my life. I have children and grandchildren and have enjoyed and continue to enjoy many north of the river facilities since the 60s. I support this new 20-acre community park, and I also support having a community fall festival at this location operating only 15 days a year. Around Halloween, last year I volunteered at Scare Valley, our first year, because as a kid I remember going to fall festivals, pumpkin patches, and haunted attractions like Scream in the Dark, and enjoyed going to that every October. The experience and the memories need to be continued for today's families. I will be a volunteer again this year because this is this is a nice family event and I support it. I was at the April 25th Kern County Planning Commission meeting when the conditional use permit was approved. The festival was very well conditioned and all potential concerns were addressed. Only 2 residents spoke against the festival on that night. That was a 7 p.m. meeting. Our time on this space will be possible. I'm sorry. Okay, our time on this space will be positive for the land and the community. 3 examples will be that they're going to be applying reconstructed granite to the parking area and leave it as an improvement for NOR. We'll also be leasing the land through NOR, and they will receive the needed funds for the park district. We'll respect our neighbors and are purposely not using the southern 11 acres to create a buffer between the festival and the neighborhood. Now, when NOR acquired this property, they probably envisioned one day the community would come to this site and play, relax, and enjoy the space, the same as we're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
My name is Kathy Prestich, and my husband and I live at 11712 Linda Lee Lane. We're at the end of the cul-de-sac of Linda Lee and Newt. And in 2012, when Talladega Frights was on, it was extremely disruptive to our home. The noise was just unbelievable. I keep a flock of chickens, and my hens stopped laying. They were very agitated with the loud music and especially the paintball, gunfire, and the lights. And it's good, I'm glad to know that this one is going to be farther away and there won't be the paintball problem. I still feel that the dust issues and the noise are going to be an issue for us because, we hear the Rosedale highway traffic, we hear the trains going by. We're going to be hearing this event as well. I have concerns about people not being able to get in to the parking lot, that they're going to come around the neighborhoods and try to find another place to park and another way to get in because they knew they were able to do that before. I'm not sure how the event security can prevent people from coming into the back side of the event or, coming through the neighborhoods and parking and so on. I just would appreciate that they might consider going to another location. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'll be next? Yes, sir. If you'd like to speak, again, please come down to the front row so you can get right to the microphone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, my lovely neighbors. Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Vinod Sahani, and I'm living 2525 Juveta Avenue West. I'm the most effective person and my family, my father, my wife, and my son with this project. We patiently lived there since 2008. We're living in Bakersfield since 2000. This property, we bought it because our sales representative promoted us as a park is coming and is a nice area. The 6.25 acre parcel next to property to property from Rosedale behind the AT&T tower all the way to the fence of the back of the property subjected. We own that. We have few farm animals. And also, we didn't have a fence before 2012, so we have a lot of complications. My father got sick. He's in a heart hospital. Because we are not familiar that time, this kind of events. So for us, it's a new thing. In middle of night, we thought, is Taliban attack us in Rosedale? And we got a little bit problems. Then we find out it is too noisy for my father. We lost young mother. We have double pacemaker, a lot of problem. The dust was coming in, too much noise is coming in, too many complications. So our farm animals jack up. They jump in the little bit spooky, few of my stud horses. Anyway, we controlled the situation and we requested how to handle it. 2012, we decided to put a fence line because there was no solutions and we never got in any meeting notification. Thanks to Suzanne in this meeting, we got update all what's going on since we will the one family who next to this lot suffering the most with health issue, environmental issues, and all the other issues, a very long list. But I don't want to degrade. We love activity, we love festivity, we love the cultures, we love everything. The main issue concerns the traffic, sound pollutions, environmental, and my dad's health. And this is really, really serious. So we call the contractor, Oxide estimate, he says this wall is about 798 feet. You need over $100,000 to make a fence wall. And we put some wire fence first, put this screen protector, but that didn't work. So next season, what we have, we bought 5,000 railroad tie, put a fence parallel to this property, and you can Google it and see it. It's cost me over $38,000. We didn't have a Christmas that year because we want to make a fence to protect this all dust. But anyhow, right now I was sure there's no more event, but now I find out that another supervisor are requesting for 3-day conditional permit for this property. So I requested, gentlemen, please consider. And I really, the most affected family, my neighborhood all support us. We all are good people. Parking is the other issues over there. And we, since here, nice surgeon peacefully, we did not like a lot of things over there, special chemicals or the noise or generator next to. It's not 700 feet, it's almost close to our property. It's very big noise pollutions, and I could not bring all my pictures and videos and everything. We have lost a few events, but I just requested, please reconsider. We'll be all there also. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steph Sanders. I oversee the Planning and Construction Department at North of the River Recreation and Park District. And since this is our property and there has been multiple questions raised, we are here to answer those questions by the board and constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. We might have one for you.
Hello, thank you for your time today. My name is Brian Wooster. I have been Mike's right-hand man in Christmastown for a long time now, and we've partnered up and we do events in Las Vegas. I also did work quite a bit for Mike Wilbur when he was here in town. I will say that there's been a lot of comparisons to the Talladega to the Scare Valley, and they are two different companies and they are two different people. The way that Mike Wilbur conducted business and the way that Mike Ross conducted business is very two different things. There's been a lot of good concerns brought up by the neighboring citizens, and I understand those concerns. Those 54 conditions that are part of the CUP, I know that that will not be hard to maintain all of those conditions because that is the way that Mike Ross normally conducts business. I remember being with Mike Ross over at the River Lakes Park. We did have a complaint for sound. Mike Ross came out, got with me. We actually went to that complainant's house. We knocked on their door, we made contact with them. We talked through their concern. We made changes in the park, and at the end of it, they were actually very happy. That's how Mike Ross conducts business. That's how we conduct business as a business, and that's what we are willing to do for the neighborhood that's there now. Also, in 2012, when this event was there was a paintball, zombie paintball, which was double-decker trailers that went through and shot 200,000 paintballs a night. In the season, they shot over 3 million paintballs. That required tons of actors, tons of motors, tons of generators. This event that we're doing is very, very different. Instead of, like was mentioned before, instead of 5 generators, there's 1 generator. That generator is a smaller KVA generators than the other generators. There's also a whisper watt, which is a lot quieter than those generators, and is going to be placed at the very front. There was also mention about the parking lot, about there only being 200 spaces. When we did our estimates, we're going to have closer to 250 spaces. In our parks in Vegas and our parks here, with the demographic that we go after, we've done parking lot studies to see how many people come per car, and we usually average 3.36 people per car at our events. So with 250 parking spots, that's more than the 700 people that we're allowed to have per night. The demographic that we go after on this type of event is much different than the demographic that Talladega went after. And these people are not the kind of people that trash streets, that vandalize. We go over after more of the family demographic with the villages that we have and the family-friendly sense that we try to bring. With that, you know, like Mike said earlier, any complaints with the neighboring people, we like to get with them and we'd work that out. The noise complaints is a big one. The generator that we're going to use is going to be a single one, by the road, whisper watt, small KVA. The sound, one of the things that me and Mike go into, both of us being in the entertainment industry, we walk into a lot of different arcades, different places, and the sound's blaring and overbearing. That's one of the things that we always talk about, a lot of entertainment venues get wrong, is that they have way too much sound, it's way too loud. Our sound is small ambient music that can't be heard much outside of the site. That's what we go with more. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. As you know, my name is Phil Hall, and usually I'm sitting over there advising you guys on land use issues. And in this instance, I'm not, and I'm not allowed to be involved in this instance at all for the county. I haven't had any involvement with it. I know no more than the public does about how this project came about or got put together. That is because my property touches the southwest corner of this what we're calling Rosedale Park. I think that's probably a misnomer at this point. There was a CUP for a park at one point. There is no longer a CUP for a park. I have talked to NOR. They say they do not have any money for a park. And when I bought my home 10 years ago, a month ago, 10 years and a month, their website said they would have a park in a year and a half. Park isn't there. I don't think there's going to be a park. And if we don't do something with this property that allows NOR to continue to make use of it. I'm afraid what's going to happen is this park will become something else, be it a commercial zone like where you see now where it says project area. That area is not part of the park. It's a dirt lot that is currently being turned into commercial. In fact, today as I drove in here to come to this meeting, they're building the brick wall for that commercial facility right now. Old Farm is currently, the road itself is kind of cut up from them putting in water lines. That's all going in. And I will also say, there was comments about this property can never be anything other than a park. It can't be sold. I understand the citation was to County Muni Code. County Muni Code wouldn't affect this. This would be NOR's codes and state statutes. And I can tell you, in my 20 years as practicing an attorney, well, close to 20 anyway, you can turn something that's dedicated to a park into other uses. It's happened. It's happened in Kern County. Not with the county, but it has happened in Kern County. So that's part of what I'm concerned about. This isn't a park right now. I want it to be a park. I don't know about some of my neighbors wanting it to be a park. I spend average 10 hours a week in parks in this county because both of my daughters are active and in sports. The noise levels at those parks are higher as far as I'm concerned than anything that went on at Talladega Frights. I will say that the zombie shoot was a little outrageous. It wasn't that bothersome for me. My house, I think, it's right there. You can see it down there in the corner. My bedroom window, I think, is probably one of the closest bedroom windows to this facility. It didn't bother me. It didn't bother me when I had younger children at that time. From 2010 through 2012, I had toddlers, basically. So it wasn't what I would consider obtrusive. Can you hear it? Absolutely. The distance from my bedroom window to the closest part of this facility, according to Google, is about 1,000 feet. That is a 200-foot further than it is to the elementary school. On a day when the elementary school is at recess, I can hear kids playing. But it's not obtrusive. It's a muffled noise. You can hear Rosedale. You can hear the trains go by. It's not that obtrusive. So in sum, you have a project here that is going on a site that would like everybody to like to be a park, I think. I don't know if some of these people are going to want it to be a park when they find out what goes into a park. If they looked at this and compared this to Liberty Park just down the street, which I probably spend, well, right now at this time of year, 10 hours a week at for soccer practices, I don't know that they're going to like it. I don't know that they're going to like it when AYSO is out there with lights, because that's what that park would be. That's what that park should be. We don't have enough space right now for our soccer clubs. We don't have enough lighted fields for them. We don't have any of that. We have a private soccer facility, private field that kids are playing soccer on in this community now because we don't have parks. So when and if that becomes a park, you're going to have lights. You're going to have facilities like AYSO soccer, and those noise levels will be as high, if not higher than this. This will also bridge the gap until we can get a park out there. That's really what I want. I want something to bridge the gap to get a park out there. It should be a park. We were all promised it was a park. At the Planning Commission, I heard that people bought in that neighborhood 10 years before I did, so going back 20 years knowing it was going to be a park. It's still not a park. This seems to be a good stopgap. I've heard complaints about parking. Yeah, I was there when the last time it was there. Nobody was parking in front of my house. I had no vandalism at my house. I find it hard to believe that somebody would come to a Halloween event, go through a scary maze, and then decide to leave and go into the neighborhood and steal something as they're on their way out. That just doesn't make any sense. So, as I've said, this is a perfect location. One thing that would have concerned me was the parking, but as I'm seeing it here, there's 210 parking spots. If there's only 700 people at the event at any one time, and it's a drop-off event, nobody's driving to it solely. Nobody's going single in those cars. So even at 2 a car, you're at over 400 with no drop-offs. So I think parking isn't an issue. And I'll say one last thing. As for dust, I want this because I think it's going to knock dust down. 3 weeks ago, I went on vacation. The day I left on vacation, I rolled down Rosedale on my motorhome as we were leaving town, and what did I see? I see the tractor for the farmer out there digging up the yard, the fields, and dust rolling into our neighborhood. When I first moved there, my very first summer, the welcome to the neighborhood was a farmer dusting that field who completely dusted out my backyard. My daughter at the time was 2.5. We stayed inside all day, afraid of valley fever. Right now, I have valley fever, very, very low grade. I don't know if it was from that or if it was from me doing yard work. But I can tell you 3 years ago, that was what I experienced was, oh, great, this is why you're lethargic lately. You have this, congratulations. So this, I think, is going to cut down dust. And I can answer any questions you'd like. There's somebody who lived out there and is kind of for it. Everybody else seems to be against it, but it really didn't bother me. Thank you.
Not to make light of it, you should just avoid yard work in the future.
Yeah, I probably should.
Thank you. Any others?
Thank you for your attention this afternoon. I'd just like to say that for the last several years, I've been taking my granddaughters to this.
Could you give us your name first, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Scott Wooster.
Thank you.
I live in the West as well, and you know, it's down the street from where we're at. For me, it's a good location. I don't like to take my granddaughters out trick-or-treating. I don't like to do a whole lot of walking. I got bad hips and stuff. So going to an event like this is good for me because I can sit. They've got a safe place to go. They like to pick out their pumpkins. You know, they like to have fun on the events. And so I just, you know, we need stuff like this in Bakersfield. I remember when my boys were growing up, they didn't have a lot, especially for Halloween. There was, you know, it was basically nothing. And so you just want to say that I would like to see this event at this location. Thank you.
Any other speakers on this item? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Tafoya, and I would just like to talk a little bit about the positivity that this event could bring. I've been working in the haunted attraction industry since 2014, and just as long as I could remember, Talladega has been around, and I remember going to school growing up, and everyone would talk about that. That's something that people would look forward to for the fall events. And I know for certain people like me and my brother and certain friends, they will travel 2 hours out to attend events like this. And the past, about two to 3 years ago, I've traveled up to Sanger to attend a haunted attraction and work up at Hobbs Grove. And I have driven back and forth throughout the night to attend events like this and to work them. And I believe that by Mr. Ross bringing something here, it will give the community something to look forward to for a fall event. And I know as of right now, besides this event going on, there is nothing else for fall events. And I do believe that it will have a positive impact as it will bring people together, the community, to have something for people to look forward to. I know that's something I've always looked forward to is Halloween and haunted attractions. And everyone that I do know has attended one of these, and a lot of them do like it. And I do believe that it will have a positive impact. And that being said, for the facility, it is a safe and controlled environment. We do have security. And for myself, I'm an explorer for the California Highway Patrol. And there are multiple people like myself that you wouldn't expect who do work, and we do look out for each other. So this is why I believe, you know, it will have a positive impact, and it is a safe environment. And I would just like to say that I would like to see something of this sort come into Bakersfield once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Other speakers?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Terry Dougherty, and I spoke against or opposed to Talladega Frights in the last appeal in 2012, I think it was. I live at 2112 Autumn Rose Court. Suzanne is one of my neighbors. Mr. Hall, who is a Foret, lives between myself and Suzanne. And my bedroom window is right next to his, so I know that I do hear it. I did hear the extreme zombie shooting double-decker thing, which I know is being eliminated. As far as the value of it for the young kids working there, I understand that. I think it's a great thing. I, again, too, as Mr. Hall and many have said, was purchasing in that area in 2003 with the understanding that a park would go in. And I know many, many people in that neighborhood always also understood a park would go in. A park would have lights, and there would be noise, and there would be sports noise. And the lights would be run by electricity and not generators. So it does cut down on noise, but I do understand that there would be light and there would be ample parking for people to park there. In 2012, I was doing dialysis and listening to those gunshots and zombie screams and those things and working full-time and doing dialysis at night was very unnerving. I have since had a kidney transplant, so I am now retired early, taking anti-rejection medication, and for that reason, that medication causes a lot of anxiety, and I don't want the noise again. And the agriculture space that is in that area, I think it's kind of nice that it's there. I, again, am immune suppressed because of anti-rejection meds and have not had any bouts or any inkling towards valley fever. And I do understand there's a few people. I'm not against this park. I'm not against this event. I think it's good for the neighborhood and the community, but I would like to address why maybe only a few people showed up in opposition in April, and that would be because we felt that the board was going to uphold the statements of the previous appeal, which was that it would not be in that space anymore. So with that said, I think that there's a better location. I'm not sure why the event is being moved back to a location that was what was denied in the past and away from the other two or three spots that they apparently were approved for. But I would really appreciate your consideration again in denying this location and not having it in our neighborhood. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Any other speakers today?
Sorry, your board. I know we usually only get one chance at this. This isn't pro or against the project. I just wanted to mention something that hasn't been said so far, and I don't know if anybody really is aware of it. On Newt and I believe it's Christie, those are both cul-de-sacs, and they connect up to this park. Children from the elementary school go through that cul-de-sac to get into the other neighborhood. So while I understand there might be a fence around there, if there is going to be a fence blocking off those two cul-de-sacs, you might want to consider allowing a little bit of a pathway, because it is better for the children to be walking down Christie to Newt than it is to go down Old Farm. So.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, seeing none, we'll return it to the board for questions, comments, or action. I'll close the public hearing, return it to the board. Supervisor Gleason, would you like to start off?
No. But I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I want to say is how impressed I am with both arguments, both sides of the argument. I talked with Mrs. Suzanne Saltz. I talked with Mr. Ross yesterday. I drove the area to get familiar with it, and I got to tell you, this is a difficult one. I want to create a win-win is what I'm trying to do here. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody up front. I want to say yes to the project, and I want to say yes to quality of life for the people in the valley, in the immediate area. I can't do both unless, if I can't do both, I'll pick a decision, but I'm trying to get to that point. First of all, let me go through a couple things. I'm all over the place here. I've been writing while all you people were speaking, so forgive me. Okay, my understanding, is there anything you guys want to say after you hearing the public comment? Craig, is there anything you want to add or to comment on?
Supervisor Gleason through the chair. Not specifically. I too was taking comments and notes, and I have some potential suggestions for some modifications of conditions that may help to address some of the concerns, if you want to hear any of them based on your comments, but I don't have anything specific at this time.
Well, let me ask a couple questions first, and then I'm going to ask you for your filters, and then we'll see what they agree with my filters and see if we can do something about this. Mr. Ross, can I start with you, please? Mr. Ross, what is a haunted house?
Haunted house is where patrons in groups of 4 to 6 will walk through kind of a maze we create, and various actors will, each room, if you will, there's probably about 12, about 15 to 20 rooms. Sorry, Kevin does a lot of the
Does
directing.
each of those 15 rooms have chainsaws, or just one or none?
No, we have maybe one. Some years we don't do a chainsaw.
You don't do a chainsaw?
We didn't last year. We did. Okay, sorry. We didn't do one. We did one last year, but it's just one guy.
Chainsaw? Is it a real chainsaw?
It's a motor-operated chainsaw, yeah, but that poses no harm as we.
I'm not worried about the harm. I'm thinking noise.
Correct.
Nice.
Okay, thank you very much. You said earlier that you'd be willing to meet with neighbors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're going to talk about that later. What's your target demographic? Who you targeting? I heard some people say teenagers. I heard you talk about young children. What's your target demographic?
The pumpkin patch and bounce houses would target 3, 4 to 10-year-olds, and then my haunted house that will attract 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds in the junior high and high school demographic.
Talk to me about trash and vandalism. What do you do for trash and vandalism?
We rent from a big trash bin. We clean up trash every night. Again, with the scope of what Talladega did using the whole property, I mean, they had a lot of props, and wind can blow and tear those things up, and probably had them blow over the fence or whatnot. With us having a condensed project, we're going to be able to keep everything right there on site, where nothing's going to blow off of our property and into neighbors' property that would be considered trash. Vandalism, I mean, my tree lot's there, and Christmas
You have a
tree.
security force?
I do.
And what is that security force? Tell me about that. 6 people, I think you mentioned?
Yeah, 6 people. Carl Hines, he's done it since the.
So they
dawn.
walk around with whistles and flashlights, no weapons,
No.
and they patrol what looks to be a much significantly smaller perimeter
Yes.
than Talladega Frights was. So
Yes.
their ability, maybe, would be to be more effective. What do they do if they find somebody jumping the fence?
We have walkie-talkies, so they'll alert us, and the team kind of collapses
So
on
it's
the
in your
situation.
financial best interest to make sure there's one access point.
Yeah, because
You're vitally interested in nobody jumping over fences and nobody trespassing on.
Yeah, I don't make any money if they hop in for free.
So if I look at that map, I think that map is that what it is? If you could expand on that, I mean, the yellow line going across the center that divides that rectangle horizontally
Yeah.
is a fence you're going to be putting up.
Correct.
And that fence is north, is it north? Is north? Okay,
Yes.
so that fence line is north of Handley Street and Christie Street access points.
Correct.
So people you'll be not making any changes to Handley or Christie. Your fence is going to be a new fence that's going to go across that perimeter there.
Correct. I will rent it from Knights Fencing. They're kind
And
of
every day you're open, you're going to be having a 6-person security team patrolling your perimeter and walking your grounds.
That is
Each
correct.
night, 6 people.
That is correct.
What are your hours of operation?
We'll open about 1 o'clock, noon for the pumpkin patch and bounce houses on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The Halloween activity will open at 6 o'clock, and on Friday and Saturday, I believe we're done at midnight, and then 9 or 10 o'clock on Sunday. I'm sorry, I didn't have the paperwork in front of me.
Okay, so when I talked to you yesterday, I think it was yesterday, you said to me that you were going to be open 13 nights.
Yes,
I think as I was scribbling down what you were saying, 13 nights, you're going to be opening a Friday and Saturday night,
The first
opening weekend. Then following weekend, it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I guess Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then closing maybe on Friday and Saturday.
Friday, Saturday, correct, yes.
And your hours of operation are from 6 to 12 on Friday and Saturday?
Yes.
And 6 to, I think you said 10?
10, okay.
On Sunday. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Why did you leave the track house?
I lost my lease. They opened it up to Dignity Health. They're doing a basketball facility there. It's a better fit than what it was too much square footage for my go-karts and arcades that were currently being operated.
It was too much what?
Facility. It was 42,000 square feet. I did the haunt trying to generate revenue for the square footage. So my lease was up June 30th. I did not renew the lease, so I moved the operation.
How many people do you employ?
With all my companies or just?
This one.
This one will employ 45 people.
45 people. Thank you, Mr. Ross. I might get back to you in a minute, but you can sit down and grab a seat. Suzanne, can I talk to you? Ms. Saltz? Thank you for coming in, and thank you for meeting me yesterday, and thank you for being so articulate in your presentation and providing me the insight that you and your neighbors feel. I thought you did a really good job.
Thank you.
If I were to ask you what your top 4 or 5 issues with this is, I would say from our conversation that your concerns were noise, parking, security, and would there be one other one? How would you characterize your 4 top concerns? Just give me a laundry list. Noise.
I think you've covered it. It's noise, it's parking, it's security for sure. And then traffic congestion.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything, I can open the floor to you to give you an opportunity to talk.
Well, I think it was interesting to hear opinion from all sides. And one of the things that was noted and said was that when it was at River Lakes Ranch, they had issues with noise, and they went and spoke to the neighbor, and they got it resolved. If it was a home, you have to remember that they had a double canal with the dirt berm before the sound would get there. And then somebody else said that they lived at the apartments that were across the street, and they barely heard the noise. Once again, you've got the road, the trees and bushes, you have the swimming pool house, and a small retaining wall. That's one thing that this park doesn't have. We don't have those kind of sound mitigation, which is very important. I really feel, once again, this is a great event. We need to have more events like this. There should be an event for every season. There should be an event that the kids and the teens of Kern County can go to. The problem is that this park was not designed for this. If it had been slightly improved and the neighbors had block walls of 6 to 8 feet, as they do at parks like Liberty Park that has lighting and issues, they have block walls. We don't have that. I would love for it to be a soccer park because you know what? There's going to be grass, there's going to be picnic benches, there's going to be kids playing during the day. There might be a little bit in the evening because of the time changes and differences, but you know what? Everybody is young and having a good time. And the neighbors next to it have block walls so they feel that they are getting some help for the sound.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Stay close. I might call on you again. Mr. Murphy, can I ask you a couple questions? Could you please talk to me about traffic impacts?
Absolutely, Supervisor. So what we have right now, just to address, well, a couple things. So the parking, we identified 1 per 3.5 persons. That's a standard that we utilize when it comes to weddings and other facilities. So that is where having a cap of 700 individuals at any one time is why we were comfortable with the amount of proposed parking spaces that this particular project is proposing.
So you're happy with the parking?
We believe we have sufficient parking to address 700 people at any one time.
How are you going to keep, excuse me, how are you going to keep it at 700? What are you going to do? How are you going to keep that 701 person from coming in?
Ultimately, it is really on the project applicant to help us manage and have them be able to show when we go out that there's only 700 individuals at one time. They can do it through, and this was not specified in the conditions, but they know that that would be a condition that they have to adhere to, so they can do it through counters as people are coming in. They can do it through pre-sales tickets that they sell to the site if they want to do that. Ultimately, they have to be able to prove to us when we go out to review the site that they only have 700 individuals in there.
Now, they prepaid a deposit. Is that correct?
They have a condition that will require the payment of $2,000 to staff that we will then utilize and build towards
that's what
when
I
we
meant.
go and monitor during the event.
So you will have, before this event occurs, you will have cash in your pocket so you can spend to send out monitors to make evaluations to see that they're complying with parking regulations, with access points, with 700 people. Come up with estimations.
That is correct.
And you'll be able to do that each of the 13 nights.
Yes.
Okay, I interrupted you.
No, that's
You were
fine.
talking about something else.
Regarding parking and traffic. So the applicant is required to submit a traffic control plan to our Public Works Department for their review and ultimate approval before any event or day would occur. One of the conditions that we could change to help address some of the concerns is we could require specific signage at key locations that help identify to the public that this is not an access point to get to the event. That is not something I don't know whether or not that was included in the previous time a similar facility was held at this location. But that is something that could be done to help make sure that these adjacent roadways have signage installed that helps to direct the patrons of the site that there's no access to the facility going down these streets.
Okay.
The other things that just, if you are inclined or if you are interested in, we could expand. The applicant is required to provide us a security plan. We can include.
I thought he did that.
They will shore it up and provide a detailed security approach prior to the event. That's one of the conditions. We can include language to specify a minimum number of security guards that would be on site. And if your board is inclined, we can actually specify that some of those security guards have to be stationed at strategic locations. So if there is a concern about people utilizing the cul-de-sacs, one of the conditions that your board can adhere to is during operational hours, you could specify that there needs to be a security individual that's stationed there to help prevent and not allow people to access the site.
In your experience, you think that'd work?
If they adhere to it and they have people that are stationed there, I believe that anytime you try to walk through and you have a security guard that specifies they can't go there, that would help. The other option, just because of some of the concerns, our condition specifically states that there is a fence that has to be constructed on the southern boundary between the project operations. You could also require that on the eastern boundary, just to ensure that anybody that may think that they can come in from the east, that there has to be a temporary fence that runs all the way up so that it's clear that that's not an access to the event as well. So those are all conditions that I can add and provide language if your board
If this
desires.
goes forward, remind me of that, because we're going to put those in there if it does. Let's talk about a second about noise. You're the pro from Dover on noise. What I'm seeing on the noise is I see a much scaled back operation. I don't think comparing this to Talladega Frights is a good comparison. And I say that because of the sheet that I got in terms of, their overall attendance. The marketing plan is strategized to develop a attendance of about 700 maximum a day. Their budget for advertising is a third of what it was for Talladega Frights. The size is significantly different. The number of generators they're using and their location of that one sole generator is so far removed. I think there will be significantly less noise to the neighbors. Do you agree with that?
Supervisor Gleason, I do, and I'm glad you had mentioned that, because one other condition that I could potentially propose is language specifying that only one generator could be utilized, and we can actually specify that it needs to be located on the northern portion of the project site. We already have a condition that specifies that no public address or sound equipment shall be placed within 50 feet of all property lines. But again, we can go into a little bit more detail specifically if the concern is related to generators.
Well, I think the noise that they talked about, the people talked about, was developed by generators. And they had a larger scoped event in previous years. This is going to be much smaller, but the generator was the noisemaker. So let's be restrictive, sensibly restrictive, so that he can operate a event, but people 3 mile or a half mile or 1,000 feet away don't have to listen to all that noise. Okay, so he's open 13 days. His hours are from 6 to 12 on Friday and Saturday night and 6 to 10. I'd like to ask, well, we'll get to that a little later.
Supervisor Gleason?
Yes.
If you don't mind, the discussion on hours actually brought something to my attention. So clearly identified in the staff report on pages 1 and 2, and it was discussed extensively at the Planning Commission as well regarding the hours of operation. The hours of operation that are currently proposed based on what was discussed at the Planning Commission, the days they would be open from, the applicant would be allowed on site between 10 to 12, 10 to noon, I should say, to help set up. We have that the hours of operation would begin at noon, and then on Friday and Sundays, it would conclude at 10, and on Saturdays, it would be open from noon to midnight. So I actually have a question as to what the 6 p.m. open hours, because that is not what was discussed at the Planning Commission. So I was a little confused.
Okay, we'll
on
get to,
that.
Mr. Ross, you want to come up? Go ahead.
I was just addressing the haunted house. The pumpkin patch, people come out at noon to buy pumpkins and do the bounce houses, but the haunted house, if it's not dark, it doesn't make any sense to open the haunted house. So we don't open that till it gets dark about 6:30.
But Friday night, you close at 10, Vice 12. You said 12, I think.
I couldn't remember, we'd like 12, but I mean.
I like 10. What does 10 do to your business? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night.
The first 2 weekends, not a problem. The 2 weekends before Halloween, yeah, we'll be sending a lot of people home early, but that's fine.
Can I jump in there? Isn't it Fridays, what the staff recommendation says, isn't it Fridays from till 11 and Saturdays till 1 a.m.? Isn't that what this says? And Sundays till 11 p.m.?
Supervisor Couch, there was, again, this was extensively discussed at the Planning Commission. So the way that the proposal is set up, and it's specified in condition 1F, festival activities are open to the public, shall be allowed from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays and Sundays. On Saturdays, festival activities that are open to the public are allowed from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. There shall be no ticket sales occurring within 1 hour prior to closing, which is 9 p.m. on Friday and Sunday, or 11 p.m. on Saturdays. All guests must be off the site at these mandatory closing times, which again are 10 p.m. Fridays and Sundays, 12 a.m. on Saturdays. All volunteers and festival personnel must be off-site no later than 1 hour after the final closing times, which would be 11 p.m. Fridays and Sundays, or 1 a.m. on Saturdays. So the question came into, in terms of being open to the public, Fridays and Sundays, 10 p.m., midnight on Saturdays, and then on each of those days, there's 1 extra hour for staff and volunteers to close everything up, lock it up, and then be off-site.
Thank you. Sorry, Supervisor.
No, I'm glad you did that. So I'm interested in closing it every night at 10 and giving them an hour to secure. I bet most of, if any of the vandalism occurs, it's probably late and it's probably on Saturday night. So let's get a look at that.
I had a question about everybody being off afterwards. I'm assuming it's okay if my overnight security stays overnight?
I think yes, I think so.
Okay.
Is that in the CUP, Craig?
Supervisor Gleason, this is the first time I have been told that there would be an overnight personnel on site the entire time. So we can specify if we want to have security there all night, then that is within your purview as well, but that is the first time that I had heard that a security guard would be there 24 hours, or I should say through all evening hours.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. Prepaid pictures, okay. Noise, parking, traffic, security deposit, security plan, that smaller perimeter patrol, I think those are all good things. To the people that live in the neighborhood, a much smaller scale operation, I go on and on. I want to tell you that I really respect meeting with you, and I really respect Mike Ross. And I think that you folks need to get together. I think Mike is going to be sensitive to the community. I think he's going to build a plan that is completely different from Talladega Nights. In order to ensure that, I'd like for the CUP to have a one-year time frame, and then let's get a review of it after a year and see, is it work or did it not work? In the meantime, Mike, I highly encourage you to meet with Mrs. Saltz. I think she's a very smart person who can help you, steer you in a way to make you part of the neighborhood. and I think that would go a long way for both folks. I think I touched on everything, and I'm willing to make a motion unless you gentlemen have other thoughts. Yeah, please go.
Supervisor Maggard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could the representative from NOR, I think her name was, I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name.
I got it.
My name's Steph Sanders.
Sanders, thank you. Sorry, my writing is so poor, I didn't write it down correctly. Could you give us any feel for the NOR's vision for the future of this property?
Currently, we do not have enough funds to develop the approximately 20-acre site, so there is no plan for this in the future. We do not plan on selling it. We just do not have an immediate park development plan for it.
And what's the surrounding area? Don't you have some kind of a ratio of how many parks you want to have or park area versus residential lots and things like that? How does that fit into the long-term perspective for this neighborhood?
This property falls within county jurisdiction, and it is 2.5 acres per 1,000 people. We would really like to be able to develop 3 or even, 5 would be fantastic. But we're just not able to do that with the current fund level. Park development fees are currently at $1,680, and they haven't been raised for a number of years. I would say definitely over 10 years, and it makes it very hard to develop a park site such as this size when we're looking at a minimum of about $5 million to do it. So a lot of the funding that we get now is with bonds or grants that happen, and this area is not considered a severely disadvantaged or a disadvantaged neighborhood, so it's hard to secure those bonds and grants for park development.
And the park development fee is paid as those lots are developed, right?
Yep, as residential units are developed, it's single-family, multifamily, duplex, triplex, that fee is assessed per residential unit.
And I'm not intimately familiar with this neighborhood, but it is largely built out in its
Correct.
general area?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a couple? Mr. Ross. We've never met, so take this, I'm not trying to be rough on you, but my sense is that this was not the occasion to get to know the neighbors and to work some things out. I feel like that should have probably already taken place. So if Supervisor Gleason's motion is successful and you have a one-year CUP in duration, I really want you to do that. I really want you to sit down. I think he said that. I think Supervisor Gleason basically said he wants you to meet with these folks and work with them, just like you say you did with the, was it Christmas Town?
Yes, sir.
And by the way, I think Christmas Town was a great event.
Thank you.
Very different from Talladega Frights, and probably a little bit different from this, but pretty hard to be annoyed with Christmas carols around Christmas time and little kids having walking through there and laughing and getting to see Santa Claus. Talk to me about the fence that you're going to put in, the one that kind of bisects the whole property that will be your southern boundary. How tall is the fence?
It's standard rental from Knights Fencing. I believe they're 6 feet tall, to my understanding.
Okay, so people can still jump that fence. So I want to ask you, and I want to ask Ms. Saunders if is it Sanders or Saunders? Sanders. Could you come back up too, and maybe you guys could both, have you all had any discussion about repairing, let me ask this question. Do you know if during the last festivals or whatever we're calling these, is that when the fencing on the cul-de-sacs that would prohibit people from going from the street or the neighborhood into the park, is that when it was damaged?
No, it gets damaged by the passerbys through the school or people basically trying to use Christie Avenue through Newt Street. Just usually the children that go through there. I'm sure there is some vagrant population that goes through there as well, but most of it that we have noted has been children, nothing from one of these events.
So what's the plan, or is there one, to keep people from jumping, or really don't have to jump the fence, they can walk over it on those cul-de-sacs?
I mean, we can go in and repair the fence.
That'd be great. That's a good start. Do you have plans to do that? I mean, I know it's expensive. Everything's more expensive than
I mean,
than it ought to be.
it's just a basic fence. We can go in and put the wire fence that's there and then the post. That's what we have around most of our currently vacant park sites.
I know it's expensive to, you're renting the fence, right, Mr. Ross, for your, I'd ask that you two talk about either repairing it or putting up some additional rental footage of fence there. But that may cut into the profit margin a little bit, I understand. But I'd like that you guys to work on that. In other words, you'd have two barriers. I think Supervisor Gleason hit the points that I think the neighborhood, thank you guys, by the way. I do want to follow up and see, I recognize these are public streets. It's not a gated community. You can't say you can't park on this street to anybody, but we can deter people or we can direct people. So I think it would be a good idea. Mr. Murphy, talk to me about what you mentioned earlier when you were talking about having the security personnel stationed different places. Were you referring to at the end of the cul-de-sac to keep people from going through there, or were you referring to sort of the intersection of whatever that street is that has the cul-de-sac and Old Farm, where there would be someone saying, we don't recommend you park in here? What were you referring to?
Supervisor Couch, or Chairman Couch, I would specify that at the cul-de-sacs, there would be security personnel stationed there. And then as part of the proposal, in addition to that southern boundary fence, to install a fence along the eastern boundary as well. That way there would be a chain link fence that you couldn't access the site from that eastern sign from any directions.
And I'm good with that, but I thought you also mentioned something about secure posting or requiring security personnel at certain locations.
The locations for sure would be at the cul-de-sacs because there are public streets that clearly if you drove down there or if you were trying to walk, you would be able to see, oh, I can walk right through there. So you would have security personnel posted at those cul-de-sac locations is what the...
Any type of signage or anything like that that we can put out on the, I'm not sure that there's only two that would be on Old Farm Road.
So signage I would specifically address in the traffic control plan. So the traffic control plan would include appropriate signage indicating those adjacent streets are not access points to the festival, to the festival. Therefore, it would direct individuals how to get to the only parking lot to access the site.
Can we make that part of our recommendation?
I have some language that I believe gets to it, that I will be reading into the record if that motion moves forward.
Okay. Mr. Ross, I have another question for you. I want to better understand one thing. 210 spaces, I'm gonna buy off on the, you can get 700 people in if you've got 3 1/3 people in the car, I think. And that, so I sort of buy the idea that people are gonna Uber, they're gonna get picked up, they're gonna get dropped off, or they're gonna go with multiple people to a car. Okay. What happens though, and I think Mr. Murphy kind of alluded to this, are you gonna sell tickets for certain periods of time that people can enter? Or is it just first come, first serve? And what happens if 800 people show up, all in their cars, and you've got 250 cars? How are you gonna manage that?
When I watched Talladega Frights in 2012, that was his peak. And granted, he did have both sides of parking, and I just have one if you look at mine. But there was, I don't know why anybody would have been parking on their streets, because there was only 2 nights where that parking lot was completely full. And again, he built 50,000 square feet of haunted house space. My haunted house space is going to be 10 to 12. I'm not going to build the largest haunted house attraction that Bakersfield can possibly hold. But there's going to be a certain number of teenagers who are going to be wanting to do something. So the haunted house is kind of an add-on to the Pumpkin Patch and Bounce House and Rockwell, not a thriving force of it. So I'm not, if 800 people show up, I have a clicker at the gate and like, hey, sorry guys, we're at capacity. Bars have that, restaurants have that, other businesses. When you're at capacity, you turn people away. They get back in their car and they leave.
Have you approached the owner of the property that is to the west of you, that's along fronts Rosedale Highway about allowing parking there?
The west owner,
Yeah, where
No.
it says projected or project area.
he talked to me, when Mike left about, renting me the space, but I haven't spoke to him in probably 5 years.
Is it possible to drive from the location, which is, I'm calling it the park, directly from there to that location?
Yeah.
There's nothing impeding someone from doing that?
No, there's no fence or nothing. No, it's open. Well, there is? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Chairman Couch. That property that you're talking about is currently being developed with commercial facility, and there's a brick wall being put up, which I would imagine by that time there will be.
Which would be along the yellow line to the west side of the park?
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know about that project.
Me either. Well, I think the neighbors have, Mr. Ross, where'd you go? You don't have to get up. I'm just going to tell you, I think the neighbors have legitimate concerns, and at the same time, I think I'm going to support Supervisor Gleason's motion to, of course, there's no second yet, but if he wants to do a 1-year trial, that puts the onus upon you to work with the neighbors to make sure that these impacts are not what they think they're going to be. Thank you. Anyone else? Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, Supervisor Gleason, I don't know if you've made a motion yet. I think that staff was going to help you to craft something, but you're indicating that you're supportive with some additional conditions on them. And I'm inclined to support you in that. Absolutely understand the concerns of the neighborhood. I was trying to think back to 2012. I mean, it's been a little while, but from what as we were sitting here talking, I was learning more, and then remembering a little bit more. I remember that zombie hunt was a big issue for folks because it was so noisy. I don't know how many thousands of rounds that you mentioned they were firing off, but I think that was sort of that became kind of the culmination of all the concerns over noise and everything else that people were talking about. And so when two of us up here were considering this back in 2012, it seemed to me that this event had started out small and then it continued to escalate in size and scope, and it just got to a point where it was too large. And then the zombie hunt with the noise the year before, et cetera. And so I think that this project is significantly different in the size, in the scope, and the things that are going to be offered as far as the entertainment value. And so I think because of that, I'm willing to give this a try. I think Supervisor Gleason mentioned a 1-year CUP, so we can be back here in a year, seeing if it worked, if it didn't work, and then what potentially we may have to change if we allow it at all. But that will be, provided it comes back on to the board on appeal. I know it probably is going to go through the same channels as it did before. But anyway, for that reason, I'm in favor of us giving the opportunity to allow this event with its new size and scope. Thank you.
Supervisor Gleason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair.
Yes.
If I may ask, so Mr. Murphy is ready to read a long list of proposed conditions, which you can change if you'd like. But the planning director has the option to bring this directly back to your board rather than taking it to a planning commission and requiring the neighbors to appeal. And I offer that to you to see if you would like it to come back to your board if he wants to process past his next year.
I want to move it today.
No, I meant if you approve it today for 1 year,
Yeah.
and he comes into process again, we have the option to bring it back to your board such that the neighbors have an opportunity, but they don't have to pay an appeal fee and
Good.
go through that process.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
All right, thank you. Mr. Murphy.
One other thing before you start rattling that off, Mr. Murphy. What about sound monitors? We have those?
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, there are no conditions specifically specified.
What is a
about
sound monitor? Tell me, do you know anything about those? I mean, that's such something you buy at a store, stick it in the ground, and it keeps track of decibel readings.
Supervisor Gleason, the closest we have is we have attempted to use, there is an app that we can download that
Okay.
can be used by the monitors that go out by the planning department.
Right.
Remembering that it is 65. 65 is actually, may seem loud to the neighbors, but that is the general plan limit. So we would be happy to include that in our monitoring.
I'd be very interested next year in, it'd be a very valuable piece of information to determine the sound, the decibel levels that were, the noise that was occurring during the site.
And Supervisor Gleason, I just want to clarify, this would be the noise off-site?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, Mr. Murphy, anytime you're ready. I think you get everything I was interested in.
Okay, I believe so. What I'll do is I will just go through the proposed changes for the conditions so we can write down which conditions are being changed, and we'll go from there. So the first condition would be condition 1. Instead of reading a 3-year, it would read a 1-year with all operations to cease November 2019. So that would be the only changes in condition number 1. Condition number 1A would read, events shall only be held on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays during the month of October and November 1st and November 2nd. Again, this year, because Halloween fell on Thursday and Wednesday, the applicant had asked to have it go until November 1st and 2nd. Staff would recommend deletion of condition 1B, deletion of condition 1C. Condition 1F would read as follows. Festival activities that are open to the public shall be allowed from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays, Saturday, and Sundays. There shall be no ticket sales occurring within 1 hour prior to closing. All guests must be off-site by these mandatory closing times. All volunteers and festival personnel, excluding security, must be off-site no later than 1 hour after the final closing times. Failure to abide by these times outlined above may result in the Director of Planning and Natural Resources Department placing additional limits on the hours of operation, including a reduction of hours. I would recommend changes to condition E1. That condition would now read, the applicant shall submit a traffic control plan to the Kern County Public Works Department Development Review Division for review and approval prior to any events. The traffic control plan shall include additional signage along adjacent intersections and roadways, directing patrons to the access site off of Rosedale Highway. I would recommend that condition 4G read as follows. The applicant shall submit a security plan to the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department for review and approval. The plan shall, at a minimum, address how the property will be secured during times when the festival is not open to the public. Security plan shall include a minimum of 6 security individuals. During operational hours, security shall be stationed along adjacent residential cul-de-sacs. Security shall be permitted to stay on site overnight. I would further recommend changes to condition 7G. 7G would read, a chain link fence shall be installed approximately 600 feet from the center line of Rosedale Highway for the duration of the festival along the southern project boundary to ensure that guests, volunteers, and vehicles are not allowed in the area. An additional chain link fence shall also be constructed along the eastern project boundary line. There shall be no activity associated with the project allowed within the southern area of the project site during the festival. This shall be illustrated on the plan.
Hold on a second. You're using the wrong list. This is not
No, I would recommend changes to condition 7I. 7I would start with the language, project proponent shall be limited to 1 generator. No public address or sound equipment or generators will be placed within 50 feet of all property lines. Further, all equipment shall be directed toward the center of the property.
There's number the same ones. No, they have different numbers. The numbers, no seven, see, it's 6, 7, there is no 7G. Okay, do you have one last one to write? I do not. Supervisor Gleason. Supervisor Gleason. Where am I?
It's working.
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, we retain the right to change numbers like 6 and 7 because he was referring to the Planning Commission resolution. The important part is the language that has been read into the record, and we will resolve those for the record. So the final recommendation, if you could read the final recommendation, is?
To approve a temporary conditional use permit for a period of 1 year with all operations to cease November 2019 in accordance with the recommended revised conditions as read into the record by staff, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the attached draft resolution.
I'll take a opportunity to agree with one of those respected men in Kern County and say I support Supervisor Watson's earlier comments that Talladega Heights Frights had outgrown its purpose and a smaller venue would be more appropriate, and move that motion.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. Next item is item 8, I believe. It's the one that was pulled for separate consideration. It is a protest hearing on the proposed confirmation of costs incurred for nuisance abatement work located at 15707 and 15711 M Street in Mojave. Mr. Anand, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you like me to start with you, or would you like me to ask the the lady that pulled the item, is there a specific question you want answered, or you just want to?
I want to make a comment.
Let's hear what you have to say first before we have him go through his full report.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for hearing my problem. This has been a nightmare for me to hear about this. I've known William since 1985, and we went together in the 80s and 90s. Had a girl who's an RN, thank you. And I divorced him because he's really annoying. And then I realized just in the last couple of years that I can't survive without him. And I came back to the security of him and his house. He's owned this property since I was born, like in 1965. And he realizes that I desperately need help. And he put my name on the property so that I will have security because I need it. I can't survive. I don't know how to take care of myself. I don't know how to give myself a place to live. I would be homeless without help. I'm just now realizing this in my 50s. He's ill. He's 74. He's not treating his prostate cancer, and I need security. He's sleeping all the time. He's in pain. I need security. So I got this notice that said that the problem that he had in 2014, when I wasn't even here, came back, and they want to charge him $11,000. They want to put it on his on our property tax, on the property tax on the house. So it's already $1,000 for the property tax for 1 year. So if they put $11,000 on there, that's $12,000. And I've known people that lost their home, their property, because they didn't pay the property tax. When you take a lien like that and attach it to the property tax to where it's due, like your property tax is due, this is your property tax. If you don't pay it, they take your home and they sell it out from underneath you.
Okay, well, let me stop you right there.
What?
I don't believe they're putting on your property tax bill. I think they're placing a lien on the property. Mr. Anand, could you clarify that?
It's on
for
the
her?
notice.
They have, after today's hearing, if your board approved our recommendations, they have 10 days to pay it. If they don't, then we will refer this to the assessor's office to have the payment that we are requesting included in their tax roll.
there's not a lien put on the property then?
Currently, there is a lien on the property that is recorded until they pay this amount.
Oh, that's already been done?
Yes.
I see.
Okay, so.
You're at a different stage. You're much further along than I thought.
Okay, so my understanding is like a lien is like, it's on there, if you ever sell the property, you need to pay everything you owe because you owed that in the past or whatever. So you sell it and you pay that because you owed it in the past or whatever. But what my notice says that I just got was to be made a special assessment against the subject property to be collected as regular taxes are collected, and that a lien in that amount filed against the subject property with the county recorder. So in other words, my understanding of what that says, and he did not disagree with that, was it, like you owe that property tax, that $12,000, and if you don't pay it, when it's legally due, they take your property away and they sell it to someone else, and you don't have a home, you don't have the property, you don't have anything. So for me, that's a nightmare, okay? And so I'm actually kind of kept in the dark. I'm the stupid woman, and William talks to all his friends about all his problems, and I just realized this was happening just now. So I talked to Mr. Anon, and he said he would love to work with me, and he would love to say that he could say it's okay for me to pay $100 a month for the next 12 years and not lose my property and not have it be past due and not be auctioned off and all that stuff, but he doesn't have the authority to do that. So even though he would be willing to go to his boss and say, let's set this girl a great deal, you know, let's make this okay, but he doesn't have the authority to do that. He doesn't, I said, why don't you just bill him, he changed his name. We've been off and on together for 35 years. He changed his name from Bill to William. So, okay, William, you know, you could just bill William personally. You could do a search, because I know attorneys do that. You could find his hidden money, because he hides money from me. I think he's gonna give money to my daughter or something, I don't know. But anyway, you could find his personal cash, and you could take money from him to punish him for whatever he's done, I don't know, but just leave the property out of it. Don't put it on the property tax. And also, Mr. Anon said he doesn't have the authority to do that either. So he said that the Supervisors Board has all the authority. So I would ask that the supervisor help me out and not put the lien on the property tax. Maybe if you can guarantee me low payments, and I'm talking humble payments. I do not make a lot of money. I'm training right now to be a drug counselor, but I'm like, you're not talking to a rich person here. So like, I'm thinking like $100 a month for 12 years if you want me to pay it or whatever. Or maybe the board has the authority to make it Williams' bill only, not my bill, not the property's bill, but Williams' bill. I don't know. Or just leave it as a lien on the property so that if I ever sell it, which honestly, I could see myself living in this house for 50 years. I helped design this house before I got pissed off and left, and he built it. And then his girlfriend died, and so now we're back together, but anyway. So, I mean, I could live in this house for 50 years and be a good citizen and treat drug addiction and make sure none of my children, I have 2 kids and 4 grandkids, and my kids are married. I could make sure all those people aren't homeless. She's talking about the homeless problem. I can make sure all those people aren't homeless, including myself, and be a good citizen in this house. If not, I could be pushing a shopping cart, begging for food and getting food stamps. So anyway, the board could help me out with this nightmare. I don't know if you have any questions. William did want to say something. Do you want to ask me a question, or do you want him to talk first?
Whichever you prefer.
Okay.
I don't think we have any questions for you at this
You
point.
don't have any questions for me? Okay.
Not right now.
Okay, William has something he would like to say.
I'm very confused at this point. I received a letter yesterday, July 29th, dated July 30th. And it's a very confusing letter. There's many mistakes in the letter. And Mr. Anon spoke to me earlier before all this other stuff, and it sounded to me like he was willing to discuss the history of the situation, and because the only thing I remember is I received a letter from code compliance in the middle of November 2013, saying they wanted me to remove trash, debris, and combustibles. And I did just that, exactly. I was very diligent about it, and I removed over 130-gallon barrels of trash, debris, and combustibles. And then my attorney and I waited for 4 months to get some kind of confirmation from code compliance, and they just showed up out of nowhere in July and started taking things that were not trash, debris, and combustibles. Well, some of it was combustibles because I heat with wood and paper. But I have never gotten anybody from code compliance to communicate with me. My attorney tried to communicate with Mr. Rojas, and he just said, oh, it's just nothing. He didn't want to communicate with my attorney. And when he had a collection agency try to attach or collect the monies that I disagreed that I owed, I told them what my attorney got from Mr. Rojas, and they just stopped collection because Mr. Rojas didn't want to talk to my attorney. And so I have a lot of discrepancies. Plus, I commend Mr. Rojas for signing this one letter that I received recently properly. Yeah, right here. This alleged attorney that's assigned this abatement thing that happened in July of 2014, I didn't know what his name was because he did not print or type his name underneath or his title. He just scribbled a signature on there. It was illegible. I couldn't read it. I had no idea even if there was a judge that signed it. And that was my first concern, but my attorney didn't seem to want to back me up on it. The best I could make out was Dolly Dildo. Because there was nowhere where his name was typed or printed anywhere. So I had no idea whether there was a forgery or an actual judge that signed it. But according to my attorney, this was a legitimate document. And I've been a landlord for many years, and I know a legal document is not signed like that. Just scribbled illegible signature on there, and it doesn't give me his title or clear typed or printed version of that signature. And that was extremely upsetting from my experience as a landlord. I knew that was incorrect. But these people, and they refused to speak to me at all. It's like they had super glue on their lips. They just came in and started stealing things. And I told them, you people are criminals, and I'm going to sue you. And they just shrugged their shoulder. Well, this one female shrugged her shoulder and said, I don't care. And apparently they realized that, or they knew that the Kern County was going to back them up because I wanted compensation for what my loss was. They just came in and stole building materials that I had plans for. And they just took them away without any explanation. And my attorney I talked to today, he wants an itemized list of everything they took. And I'd like to move that because of what happened to me and all the things that were stolen and the fact that they never did compensate me for items stolen, that they just eliminate this whole fiasco and and reduce the fines to zero. So I wanted an attorney to speak for me, but I haven't been able to find someone that's willing to back me up, and I'm just doing the best I can. It's very upsetting to me what they did to me. So I was it was never clear. They gave me a bunch of numbers, sections, this. I don't know what those mean or how to find out what they mean. And I was hoping that maybe Mr. Anand could help explain that to me. And I just thought about this just last night. You know, if I knew what a lot of these sections, there are two things here that I know are false, is I've never had any inoperable vehicles on the property. And my tenants and I have never had any trouble exiting the property. And I've talked this over with my tenants. They had, and they're saying that there's failure, let me see. Oh, inadequate or lack of adequate egress. That's never been a problem on the property. There's never been any inoperable vehicles. There's never been any lack of egress on the property, ever. So anyway, this is basically what I wanted to say. And hopefully maybe Mr. Anand and I can talk of some kind of resolution for this problem, because we do not want to lose our house. We designed the house and I built the house. I completed it in 2002. I lost $3 million worth of income property and had to move from Roseman to Mojave. I had 3 trailer parks and 2 convenience stores that I was operating. And then all this stuff came down on me out of nowhere. It didn't make any sense. So hopefully Mr. Anand and I can hash this thing out and understand, but it's been a terrible nightmare, the whole thing.
Thank you. We'll see what we can do here. Staff, do you want to make any comments before I ask Supervisor Scribner to weigh in?
I can,
Go ahead.
Chairman Couch, if you want me just to brief you and just give you background on this particular case, I can if you want me to.
Sure.
This item is requesting your board to conduct a hearing to confirm cost associated with abatement work that has been done by the county, which we did back in 2014. Before we conducted this work on March 18, 2014, your board conducted a hearing and declared a public nuisance to exist at this property, which is located at 15707 and 15711 M Street, Mojave, assessors parcel number 236-24405. The property at the time was owned by C&A Trust. Mr. William Fitzman is a trustee. Your board ordered the public nuisance that existed at that time to be abated, which consisted of several violations of the county ordinance. A finding of public nuisance and order of abatement was sent to the property owners on April 1, 2014, and it was posted on the property on April 3, 2014. The notice and orders sent to the property owners informed them that if they failed to abate the violations, the county was required to abate those violations, and all costs associated with the abatement would be assessed against the property and could be collected as a special assessment on the tax bill for the property. That's if they don't pay it. The owners of the property failed to abate the nuisance within the time given to them by our staff and by your board. Therefore, on or about July 18, 2014, abatement work was performed by Public Works Department in accordance with your board's direction. And and also in accordance with the Kern County Code, Chapter 844. The work that was done consisted of removing trash, junk, debris, and other miscellaneous items from the exterior of the property. And also there was some cutting and trimming and clearing of excessive vegetations and weeds. A notice of protest hearing on the proposed confirmation of cost for the nuisance abatement work and statement of verified expenses was prepared for this project, showing a total cost of $11,074.60. Included in the notice of protest hearing was a statement that your board would consider these costs at today's hearing. This notice of protest hearing was posted on the property on July 8, 2019, and was mailed on July 2nd, 2019 to the property owners. Staff has reviewed the environmental effects of this enforcement action and has determined that the enforcement action is exempt from further CEQA review. So this very much concludes our comments, and we are here to answer any questions that you may have. Just briefly, again, on the dates, this case started back in 2009. And we sent the owners several violations, several letters. I don't know if they have received it or not, but according to our records, we've inspected the properties, several violations. He made some progress at the beginning, but not enough. And also, during your board hearing back in on March 18, 2014, he had, or the owner had 30 days after that hearing to clear up the property. That wasn't done. We also gave them an additional 30 days after the 30 days that was in the hearing. That wasn't done either. We also gave them another extension for 30 days. That was done. So at that time, we decided to move forward and take care of the cleanup for them. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Do I need to open this up to the public again? Okay. I know you've already spoken. If you'd like to speak again, or if there's anyone else who would like to comment on this item, now is the time to do that. Seeing none, return to the board, and Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is in my district. As a matter of fact, I'm very familiar with this property. I remember the hearing pretty well back in 14. 2009 is when we started at this, you said, Mr. Anand, so that was when we first received a complaint from one of the neighbors, went out, looked at the property. A notice to abate was April of 2014. Then we finally abated it ourselves after we didn't have any action or satisfactory action by the property owner. And so now here we are trying to recoup the costs that the taxpayers have incurred to go out and abate the nuisance.
That is correct, Supervisor.
Why, question I have, why did it take us 5 years from the time that we abated the nuisance to now doing the notice of the hearing to put the $11,000, which is a combination of our costs, some administrative penalty, and administrative costs? Why is it 5 years later?
The reason for that delay, there was a pending litigation against the county, and I believe, and county council can speak to that. It was sent to the court, and it was appealed, and I'll let the county council speak to that, if I may.
Thank you. Ms. Rezan?
Thank you. Supervisor Scribner, through the chair. Following your board's action in 2014, Mr. Fitzsimmons filed an action with the Superior Court. County prevailed in that by way of a demur, which basically had his suit dismissed. He then proceeded with an action to the 5th District Court of Appeal, and the county prevailed in that appeal as well. And during that period of time, a decision was made to hold the, I guess, the assessment or the levying of the fees in abeyance, waiting for the outcome of the litigation. And I believe the court action finally was finished up at the appellate court in December of 2018.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. I think it's important to point out that our staff through code compliance tried to work with the property owner for several years, finally went out and abated the nuisance, incurred costs to do so that the taxpayers of the county incurred in order to clean up this property, which had multiple violations. Then the action that this board took was adjudicated in the Superior Court level, and then the appellate court level. The county prevailed in both cases, and so now it's time for us, I believe, to do what we can to incur those costs that the county, to recoup those costs that the county has incurred. And so I'm going to make a motion on staff's recommendation on this item. Thank you.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Mr. Nunn, would you mind speaking with them just to let them know what their options are at this point, what their timeframes are that they've got to work with?
Yes, Chairman Couch, I will.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next item is item 15 under the Fire Department. It is a proposed retroactive agreement with the City of McFarland for fire protection services and enforcement of the state fire marshal regulations.
Okay, good afternoon, Chairman and Board of Supervisors. I'm here today to talk about the proposed retroactive agreement with the City of McFarland for fire protection duties and enforcement for the state fire marshal regulations containing non-standard terms and conditions for $647,544. Excuse me. The proposed 18-month agreement will provide for the continuation of services with the city and existing resources at Station 33. The term in this agreement will begin on July 1st, 2019, and will continue until December 31st, 2020, unless otherwise terminated. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the CAO's office, to David Toomey, the interim city manager with the City of McFarland, and my staff for successfully negotiating this proposed full-price contract for fire services with the City of McFarland using our current methodology, which has been in place since 2007 fiscal year. This same methodology was used for all 9 of our contract cities: Arvin, Delano, Maricopa, McFarland, Ridgecrest, Shafter, Taft, Tehachapi, and Wasco. I believe we're on the right track and looking forward to working with the City of McFarland as they expand their sphere of influence and attract new business to their city. A little bit of history about this fire station. The Kern County Fire Department has had a fire station in McFarland since the mid-1930s. The McFarland Station is one of the original 7 stations built by the Kern County Fire Department because the area was strategically important to the County of Kern. The original Adobe station was replaced in the late 1980s as part of a large replacement of stations that were deemed unsafe to the unreinforced Adobe construction. And in 1957, the city incorporated. In 2017, the former fire chief, Brian Marshall, negotiated a 2-year contract in 17 for $50,000 and the second year for $100,000 in addition to the fire fund. We believe the contract before you today is a step in the right direction. We're looking at the cost methodology with the CAO's office, and we've hired a consultant to look at how we determined the price for the cities that we contract with. This is important, and we're working steady at that. This is a short-term agreement. This is an 18-month agreement using our current calculations per capita to determine a fair price that we've used for all cities. It's the first time that with the city of McFarland has paid their full calculated price. It's $500,000 more than the last agreement, 2-year agreement. And you know, even though the $681,000 from the first contract wasn't in this contract, we believe this 18-month time period will give us time not only for McFarland to work on their sphere of influence, it'll give us a little bit of time for our consultant to work on the next methodology that we use, incorporating a lot of different ideas, and we're actively working on that. And I think that really, you know, our department, we're looking at everything we can do to cut costs, to look at fees for service. And you see that in a couple of the consultants that we've hired to look at our fire prevention fees, our contract city fees, our indirect cost rate, and multiple areas where we've cut costs. We believe in the end, this will give us time to get to where we need to be. And I'm excited that this is the most ever we've received from the city of McFarland. And I'll open it up to questions at this time.
Thank you, Chief. Let's open it up to the public. Is there anyone here that would like to make a comment on this item? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dave Nelson, Kern County Firefighters Association. So over the last couple of days, we've been listening to the budget presentations, and we continue to hear time after time the $6 million deficit associated with the fire fund. So in looking at the calculations for just labor alone associated with the McFarland contract, we know that we're only going to recover about 50% of the cost association with labor at that time. It's $1.6 million for a 12-month period, just in personnel costs alone. So I do think that Chief Witt is moving in the right direction in these particular areas, but the thing that I'm before you today for is the fact that we cannot continue to beat him over the head with a $6 million deficit when he is doing what he can to secure and provide services to a community in need. So in your consideration of your vote today, last year when this contract extension came out, Supervisor Maggard as well as Supervisor Couch, who now has inherited this district, spoke and stated that the city of McFarland should pay, and it is not fair to the citizens of the county that they don't pay their full share of costs associated with the fire protection service that they receive. We all know and we all agree that McFarland is in need of that service, but at the same time, voting to accept this contract, I would like you guys to take into consideration relieving the fire chief of the portion of the fees that he's not recovering in the deficit that he is being beat over the head with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Any others? Good afternoon, sir.
That's almost time for dinner. I think it's a good evening.
Good point.
Mr. Chair and members of the board. Yeah, it's been a long day, and I'm not going to talk very long, but we've had a structural deficit for 4 years. 2 years ago, you received a management audit that identified a problem with the methodology with our contracts, not just with McFarland, all the city contracts, maybe the state contracts, maybe the federal contracts. It's 2 years later. We still have, now we got a consultant finally after 2 years. This is not Mr. Witt's problem, by the way. He inherited all this. And I guess the question is, how long have we been subsidizing all the cities because the methodology is not right? And we keep talking about it. And well, we have a consultant and we'll get to it someday when the consultant gets done. It's still a lot of money. And I guess what really scares me is not little contracts like McFarland, but what if our contract methodology with the state and the federal government, which are, what, $12, $15 million a year, we get in reimbursements, what if those methodologies are wrong? This should be a very top priority, and also the fact that the management audit had some recommendations, and we haven't had a final report on what's happened, what's been implemented, what hasn't. I think the last report that I remember has been almost a year ago. How is the implementation of those cost savings happening? If we really have a structural deficit, and it is a priority, it's time to take action now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any other speakers on this item? No. Seeing none, I'll return it to the board. This is in the 4th District, so let me start us off here. I agree with both the speakers here. I think it is fair of us to, on a go-forward basis, to start looking at, let me speak directly to what Mr. Nelson said. If this board makes decisions that, in essence, add to the deficit, we shouldn't continue to use that amount of deficit in our talking points. And I'm going to try to change that. So at least as far as I go, I don't think that's intentional. I think that's just something where I think it's overlooked, and so I don't think that's an intentional thing that's done by the staff. But I think you raise a good issue, Mr. Nelson. And Mr. Turnipseed's right. We haven't had when was the last time, I'm not expecting you to know this, when was the last time we had an update on where we were walking through those he called it a management audit, but I don't think we called it that. Assessment.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I can't remember. It was several months ago, but we're right in the middle of imposing one of the major cost savings measures on the fire union.
Understood. But after we get through our negotiations, and maybe after we get through budget adoption, I think it'd be a good idea if we brought that that item back for an update when it makes some sense. I think this, Chief, I think you're right. I think it's a big step forward in the right direction. I think McFarland has made a big step forward. We did not have in our contract, it didn't exist for us to recover that, the money that they did not pay, I guess, over the last couple of years. So I know maybe it's a tough one to swallow, but that's on us. But I'm of the opinion that we should move forward with this contract. It is a full cost recovery, at least according to the contract that the formula that we currently use. So I just want to thank you and your staff for the work that you did, and for the CAO's office for the work that they did on this. And I want to thank the city of McFarland for the work they did and how they have stepped up. So I'd like to make a motion on the staff's recommendation. Is the chairman still allowed to do that? Okay. And again, thank you. Supervisor Scribner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Chief, or Mr. Nelson, would you mind coming up to the microphone? I want to get some clarity on one of the statements that you made. The chief is telling us, and the board letter says that this is full cost recovery when you look at the cash they're paying plus the interest that that the county is going to keep essentially in regards to a contract for sheriff in years past. And so I thought I heard you say that this really only covers about half of the labor cost, 50%. Did I catch that right?
Correct.
So do you believe that's the case then with all of our city contracts? If we're using this the same methodology on McFarland, and I'm all for us having this consultant come on board and looking at the methodology that we use for all the contract cities. I know we have fire fund that goes into the mix, and there's several considerations, and maybe there is a better way, and that might be exactly what that consultant determines, that there is a better way for us to do that methodology, so we do have full cost recovery. I'm sure every member of this board, in addition to the chief and the CAO, wants to ensure that we are getting full cost recovery on these contracts. So I know, sorry I didn't give you a chance to answer when I kind of went on, but that's basically the question then. Do you think that that the methodology we're using on all the cities is shorting us to that extent?
I do, and I think everybody in the room can agree that is the situation. We don't look at a broad enough scope of how we're providing services. He inherited his formularies from 2 previous chiefs.
Sure.
It's something that previous contracts have been established on, but I think going forward, we have to look at what the true cost of service is for our department. Year after year, he has budgeted at a deficit, and no matter what, he never comes out ahead. And the point that he is at this juncture is that he is at a cost savings of seeking out dimes and nickels, where before he was able to pick out, hundreds of dollars at a time. So his position right now is very limited in how much more he can cut without cutting services to the community. And I do applaud him for his efforts in making those cuts, but it is time for us to look at what it's going to be going forward and how we negotiate these contracts, how we deal with personnel issues, and training and deploying those resources.
Thank you for that. What do you think as far as the contracts we have, the gray book contracts, contracts with the state, the amount that we're paid when we go out and we protect state and federal land? I mean, do you believe that we have similar issues there as far as cost recovery?
As far as the state and federal contracts, I don't know. That would be a better question for Steve Long to answer. I know we've looked into it. It's very complex calculations. So that's not one that I'm going after, because I do know it's reimbursed. So I hope we're achieving fairly close to, if not more than, what the actual cost association is with the admin fees.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And your input. Chief, I want to ask you the same question. I mean, do you think that well, I'm not going to ask you for a percentage, but I think if we're hiring a consultant to look at this methodology, logically that leads me to believe that we have some issues there as far as what we charge our contract cities. And so if you want to make any comments to that, I'd be interested in hearing them, but also, what your thoughts are as far as with the state contracts, et cetera. You and I have had some conversations about that, and the importance of maybe looking at what our reimbursements are in regards to all the property, the lands that we do protect. So I'll leave that open for you if you want to make any comment on it, and then I've got a couple other things to say about this specifically.
Okay, first off, the question on the contract cities. I do have concern. I have concern that we aren't charging enough to our contract cities. And I've talked a lot with the CEO staff on this particular issue, and we're working together to work with a consultant to come up with something that's fair, but that accurately depicts how much we cost and where we're at in our services. There's a big thought process with this, though. It's not just the people that are at the station providing service to that particular station, because that particular station may end up on their Erskine Fire, or it may end up in Tehachapi, or it may end up in Delano. We have a mutual aid system, and we have to have the number of engines that we have to fully protect situations like that. And so there is a value to having, to the county, there's a value to having a contract city engine in place that can be utilized in other areas too. But I still believe that without a doubt, we need to look at this issue and make sure that we've done our due diligence to address that issue, contract cities.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the value that you pointed out for the county as well. What's the timeline for bringing that consultant on? I don't know if anyone said. What's that?
Chairman Couch, Supervisor Scrivener, if I may, we presented to your board specifically on this item. I can't remember how long ago. It's been a while.
I need a reminder.
They are on board, and they are midway or more than midway through their work.
Okay,
and so we're working. It's a collaborative effort, and we're looking forward to getting those results.
So are we thinking 6 months? No, shorter period of time than that?
Yes, shorter period of time. As a matter of fact, I have a meeting next week with the CEO's office on some preliminary results that the consultant has. And we realize the importance of this and getting it done quickly, but I believe in a couple months, we should have something to talk to you about.
Okay, thank you. I know that part of staff's reasoning on moving forward with this is to allow for that process to be completed. When I think that that's logical. Will this consultant be looking at anything other than contract cities? Or are we going to be looking at any of the issues with the SRA, with state, federal lands when we respond, anything along those lines? I mean, I understand that that's a lot more out of our control as far as that reimbursement's concerned. It's not something that we negotiate. It would probably be something that we would have to go and pursue potentially legislatively. But
yes, that would be a different level with the state and the federal government. This particular consultant on the fire side of the house is looking at the contract city formula and how we go about it, the true cost of the station. I've got somebody else working on fire prevention fees, as well as an indirect cost rate, if our indirect cost rate is adequate. But we need to actively work with the state government and the federal government. There are set prices that we get reimbursed for our people that go out, a set price plus 10% an admin fee that's attached to that. But yes, the consultant's just strictly looking at, on the firehouse side of the house, the fees for contract cities.
okay, thank you, Chief. Lastly, I want to talk about the $681,120 that apparently didn't make it into a contract. And so I want specifically, there was a letter that we sent to the mayor of McFarland, October 10th, 2017, signed by the chief and the chair at the time, and that was me, which essentially says that, and this is in regard to the 2-year agreement that is expiring, and this contract would be replacing that for an 18-month period. So the enclosed agreement also requires that the city of McFarland, I'm reading from that letter, the enclosed agreement also requires that the city of McFarland enter into a 10-year agreement with the county for fire protection service prior to the June 30th, 2019 termination date of the interim agreement. Compensation due to the county during this 10-year agreement will be based on the same methodology used for all the other incorporated cities. Also be advised that discounts being provided within the interim 2-year agreement will be amortized over a 10-year period and included in the replacement agreement. Discounted costs have been calculated as follows. And so that basically over those 2 years, the discounts add up to $681,000, and that was supposed to be amortized over a 10-year period in that subsequent 10-year contract. We're not talking about a 10-year contract today. We're talking about an 18-month. Do I have this all correct? As far as you know, okay.
As far as I know.
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, once this 18-month period is over, and we have had our consultant go through and look at the methodology that we use, we need to come back and talk about the $681,000 that I believe was clearly articulated that needed to be paid back over a 10-year amortization period. So that I want staff to be aware that that's my position on this. I'm going to go ahead and support this agreement, but I don't think that it is reasonable for us to leave that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't have any other lights on. Do we have a second yet? We have a motion. We have no second.
I'll second it.
A second by Supervisor Gleason. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you. That takes us to the end of the meeting, I think. We need a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, August 13th at 9 a.m. Without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.